eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's partners in education, where stars shine.
Now he shoots it!
What you live for lives here. We are Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Friday Night Huddle, along with Dan Labbe and Nate Cline from cleveland.com. I'm Dave Bacon. Let's check in on one of the games going on in the southern part of the state. Wayne taking on Olentangy Liberty, and Wayne with the football. Brown gets the corner. Oh, look at that. Nobody home, and Brown gets into the end zone to give the Wayne Warriors a 10-0 lead on Liberty. And Wayne struggled in their opener. They lost 41-0 to Pine Richland. That's the team that has the Notre Dame recruit that St. Ed's beat in week 1 last week, but they went down and lost 41-0. So Warriors needing a win.
And talk about a team that needs a win. Huber Heights Wayne, they're definitely the squad right now after that loss. But Rashad McKee at quarterback for the Wayne, he's going to be at the leader on this team. He's going to be the one that's going to help put a lot of points on the board against Liberty, who also reached the playoffs as well. And I'm sure we'll be talking a little bit more about that as well. And
of course, you talk about Wayne, Christian Smith, their big wide receiver that is being recruited by virtually everybody. So the Wayne Warriors in need of a victory, up 10-0.
Yeah, and just to that point, LaChristian Smith, he actually did commit shortly before that game. One of our reporters was down there to get all that information. But yeah, LaChristian, I mean, he's going to be a key part of that offense for them as well. And, not only does he, he wants to do well for that program. He did a couple of interviews before that, got a chance to listen to those. But LaChristian is going to be a big part of that as well. But Rashad McKee, he's the key to that offense as well.
You're keeping the viewers in. Are you going to put the hat on? Where do you commit to?
I'm sorry. Well, no, we thought you caught that. But no, he committed to Ohio State. So, yeah, so blue staying in state. So
I was waiting for the big Buckeye to come out.
I wasn't sure how we were going to handle that there. So. It's like your own commitment there. I'm announcing that LaChristian Smith is committed to Ohio State.
But so the Buckeyes get a good one in LaChristian Smith from down in Wayne. So, good start for them. And certainly Jay Minton, head coach there, heck of a coach. So no shame in losing to Pine Richland. That's a good team with a big-time quarterback. So interesting. The other thing, you have to be pretty impressed, and we were talking about it a little bit before we went to break. You have to be impressed with the way the Hoban Knights responded. You would expect that, a team that's won a couple of state championships in a row. But they graduated, Danny Clark, Todd Sibley, and a number of those skill position guys. Now, there are guys that have been a part of that. Hauser's been a part of it. Nolan Rumler, big left tackle, R.J. Kelly. So they have guys that know what it takes to win, but it's still good to see, them responding and playing the way they are tonight.
Yeah, and it just goes to show that Coach Terrell knows a little bit about what he's doing there and knows how to make sure he keeps guys motivated. And one of the things you always watch for is, how do guys kind of look at it when you have a great class that graduates? Do guys look at it like, okay, that was my meal ticket, or do they look at it like, hey, now it's my turn? I waited my turn. Now I get to take over and show what I can do.
Well, one of the games that we have a reporter at is the Hudson-Strongsville game. Dan Gillis joins us from Hudson. Dan, what's going on with the Explorers and Mustangs?
How's it going? So far, it's been all Hudson in the first half. Hudson leads Strongsville 28-13. Colt Pally, the Hudson quarterback, has been on fire. He's 8 for 9 in the first half for 206 yards and 4 touchdown passes.
Oh, Colt Pally doing a heck of a job. Who's caught the touchdown passes for Hudson? Yep. Sorry, stumped you.
Here we go. Dawson Worthy has 2 touchdowns. He has 2 catches for 77. And Colin Paltani has one touchdown catch. He has 3 for 59. and the last touchdown was caught by Greg Maley, and that was a 61-yard bomb. That's his only catch of the game. So he's been spreading the ball around pretty well in the first half.
How's Majors done? The quarterback for Strongsville had 6 touchdowns last week. We were talking about him a little bit. How has he been?
He's been pretty good for them. He hasn't been as stellar as he was last week. He has 111 yards in the first half, 7 for 12. He threw a costly interception right before the first half ended, which led to a 40-yard touchdown pass in the very next play. That made it 28-13 Hudson. He also has 15 yards rushing. He's been forced to scramble a lot. Hudson's brought a lot of pressure. So he's taken a few sacks. But so far he's been hanging in there. I mean, he's made a lot of plays. He's kept a lot of plays alive with his legs and with his arm. Unfortunately, hasn't gotten a whole lot of help tonight.
All right. Dan Gillis, we appreciate it very much. The Hudson Explorers with a 28-13 lead on the Strongsville Mustangs.
Yeah, tables kind of turned for Strongsville. They had a big lead last week and kind of had to hang on for dear life. Now they're going to have to come back. But the big plays for Hudson, I said at the top of the show, they've got to see what Colt Pillay can do, and can he be their quarterback? And, obviously he has been their quarterback before, but can he take that next step? And we're seeing the big plays for the Explorers. And we know that's a team that kind of lives on big plays sometimes, and they've blown that game open a little bit, 2-score lead. Yeah,
and Colt has a lot of potential. We were talking about that earlier in the show, but he only threw 1 touchdown last week, but the crazy thing was that he threw for over 200 yards, but found 6 receivers, so he's not shy about getting the football around. Now, Greg Maley was the only one that came down with the touchdown, but he's got a lot of weapons around him, and look like they can do a little bit of damage there as well, so for the offense.
Well, we've been talking about the Menor Cardinals and the St. Ignatius Wildcats, and that Wildcat offense getting it cranked up again. Game was tied at 10 when last we checked in. Kyle Hall, plenty of time to throw. Schneider grabs it, touchdown. That one made it 17-10 late in the second quarter is St. Ignatius opening up a lead on the Menor Cardinals.
A really nice throw, nice touch on that football. It seems like every St. Ignatius quarterback, you see throws like that. You see the ability to make that play. But there they go. They've got the lead back now.
And I think Hall is finding his favorite quarterback right now because he was the leading receiver against the Hoban Knights last week with 112 yards. So obviously it looks like there's a connection there right now. And then you got Mark Babinski being able to shake it up in the backfield as well. So the Wildcats have a couple key players that they can pick from on this offense, and obviously with that big stout offensive line that they have, they can do that damage.
Yeah, Sam Schneider, the guy that caught the touchdown, a senior, kind of waited his turn and now starting to perform. So that's kind of the way it works at St. Ignatius. If you play before your senior year, you're a pretty good football player, and Schneider getting his chance this senior year, and he and Hall shining.
And how many quarterbacks have we seen come through there that take over as seniors? That's the 1 year they get, and they take advantage of it. Yeah. And maybe we're seeing that a little bit now with Hall.
Yeah, and Hall, I was kind of questioning how he was going to respond to this. But Menor, one thing that I saw we were talking about last week was some of the holes in the Menor defense in their secondary, and it looks like Hall's finding his little spots where he can pick and choose from where. And other than that, if they can't find where he wants to throw it, I'm sure he's going to head off to Mark Babinski as well. Yeah,
that's kind of the way they do. They'll flip the switch and throw, and then set up the run when you drop off. Yeah. And so St. Ignatius starting to get rolling offensively, which a good sign for Chuck Kyle, not such a good sign for the Menor Cardinals.
But we know that Menor's never out of a game.
Yep.
Just like if you're trailing Menor, you're never out of the game. Menor's never out of the game either.
And let's not forget, a couple years ago, that matchup there with a lot of points on the board. But then we also saw that Menor last week, they got off to a slow start. I'm curious how they're going to respond in week 2. But both teams are capable of putting up a lot of points if necessary, and we're just going to see who comes out with the win. And also, there's a lot of computer points and a stake in the region right now. Both of them are playing the same region, and obviously they want an edge over the other.
Yep, and the thought being both of these teams are going to win a good amount of games. So this is one of those early games where you beat them and then you say, go win out so I can get all those points because that's the way the playoff system works.
Yeah. Yep. And you are chasing the playoffs already. That's the way high school football is. You only get 10 of these games, so you got to make them all count.
And mind you, we were also talking about some of those other teams in the region as well. St. Edward, Euclid, who's up right now. I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. But, you know, they've got some teams that are trailing right now, knocking on that door as well. They want a playoff spot, and only 8 can get in from the region.
Well, one of those 8 trying to get in, the Solon Comets. When last we checked, Solon leading Twinsburg by a score of 7-0. But the young Tigers starting to growl on offense. And a guy I said was a linebacker, also plays a little bit of fullback. Isaiah Savitt gets into the end zone for the touchdown, and the Tigers tie it up at 7. 7-7 the score, as the Tigers hanging tough against the Solon Comets in the third quarter. So, again, Mike Bell, keep it close, find a way to win it. That's the recipe for beating good football teams.
And these two teams are very familiar with each other. If you recall, they were in the same conference maybe about a couple years ago before everything came into the greater Cleveland Conference. But these two teams are very familiar with each other. But Twinsburg, on this case, they need the points. They're in Division II. They've got some teams in their region that they're really concerned about. But Solon, you know, as we saw, they watched that touchdown. I'm curious to see how they're going to react now.
And Twinsburg hanging around, keeping the game close until they get an opportunity to kind of start things over now, 7-7. And you know when Solon is playing a game like this, you know you're going to have an opportunity to steal it. The question is, are you going to take advantage of it, or is Solon going to be the team that takes advantage of one of your mistakes?
And keep in mind, this is year 3 for Mike Bell over at Twinsburg. So these guys that are juniors have now had 2 years under him, and they're kind of developing. Mike Bell's a pretty good football coach. He's going to find a way to get that program back where it is used to being, where it's a perennial playoff team, and that's they're taking steps pretty quickly in that direction. The Tigers are very good, a lot of juniors, and that's the class he came in, and so he's had kind of a couple years to craft these guys. And he's starting to see some of the results on Friday nights.
And this is a home game for those young guys on that team. And right now, I mean, obviously, it looks like those young guys are growing up. That year was able to be a big help for them. But no, this game is going to mean a lot for the Tigers. And obviously, they want to play really well in front of their home fans. So we're going to see what happens against these two teams. So
again, 7-7 third quarter. So we'll keep our eye on the Solon Twinsburg game. You know, guys, one of the surprising things, the way Padua has opened up that lead on Holy Name. That was a game that, you know, you expect a much closer game than that, but Kevin Peterson really getting things rolling for the Padua Bruins.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a good, solid quarterback. We talked about his size, talked about his arm strength. We saw a little bit of his mobility as well, and for Holy Name, you know, here's a team that went 6-5 a year ago, kind of trying to get themselves back together. They've got their own quarterback who's coming back from an injury. You know, but Padua making a little bit of a statement tonight.
And don't you think that these neighbors who were fairly close to each other didn't get film on each other? Because Trent Kramer from Padua, he rushed for over 307 yards and scored 3 touchdowns last week. So obviously Holy Name had to figure out what they were going to do and what they were going to try to stop. Now, obviously, we haven't heard too much from Kramer's camp, but definitely Kevin looks like he's doing some damage for the Padua offense here.
Yeah, you know, the other thing that's kind of interesting about that, we kind of talked big game because, you know, like I said before, they're fishing in the same pool. Those are the kids that you're going after, the same kids saying, come to Padua, come to Holy Name. These games matter. That's huge for your program.
Yeah, I mean, you want kids growing up saying, that's the team I want to go play for. You know, I mean, right? That's how it is with St. Ignatius. That's how it is with Eds. That's how it's starting to be with, you know, like Hoban, St. Vincent-St. Mary. Kids grow up and say, I want to play for that team.
Just like you were reading my mind. St. Vincent-St. Mary, Walsh Jesuit.
Maybe
another game where they're recruiting the same kids. 14-0, the Fighting Irish with the lead. And here's that sophomore tailback, Terrence Keys. Second effort into the end zone, his second touchdown of the night. It is now 21-0 St. Vincent-St. Mary, leading Walsh Jesuit at halftime. And the Fighting Irish played a lot of young guys last year, and they're starting to see the payoff as Luke Lindsay, the quarterback, looks pretty comfortable. He's a sophomore. Terrence Keys, the tailback, is a sophomore. He's pretty comfortable. So good luck. That's what you have to look forward to. Both these guys are 10th graders, and both of them are playing pretty well in week 2 here.
And when you get those extra postseason weeks, too, that's a great way to take a step forward with a young team, and St. Vincent-St. Mary got that. But again, Walsh, they've got to figure out a way to just get some points. I mean, they've gone 6 quarters now this season without scoring, and it's not going to be easy against the St. Vincent-St. Mary defense. But they've just got to find a way to get some kind of small win and put points on the board.
Keys has to be a writer's favorite player to talk about in the headline. I mean, can you imagine all the headlines they're coming up with that? Keys to the game or something. But anyway, to my point, he's a big part of that St. Vincent-St. Mary offense, as well as Lindsay as well. And right now it's proving it. They're up by 21. And Walsh has to find a way to be able to slow down or minimize the Fighting Irish here, who look to claim the bell this year.
Well, one of the things that we love is we have student reporters here on Friday Night Huddle. We will check in with our student reporters from Westlake. Here is Adam and Garrett.
Hello and welcome. This is WHBS reporting on the Westlake Demons versus Berea Mid-Park Titans game. I'm Adam Goyach.
I'm Garrett Uderhark.
Currently, Westlake is getting beaten. The score is 28 Titans to 20 Demons. We've had some fantastic plays, especially in the first quarter.
The game was doing great in the first quarter. It was a tight game. Second quarter, the Demons kind of lagged a little bit, but I believe in the second half we can come out strong and still take this game.
Fingers crossed. It's been a fantastic game so far.
It has.
We've seen some great plays from both sides and some amazing offense passes, especially for a high school game.
Oh, yeah.
It has been a fantastic game. We'll see you at the end.
All right.
All right, guys, we appreciate it. Berea Mid-Park leading 28-20 on the Westlake Demons. Well done, Adam and Garrett, as they keep us up to date on Westlake and Berea Mid-Park. So Jason Hall trying to get things ratcheted up for Westlake, a playoff team a year ago. Pulled a big upset in round 1 of the playoffs as well. Need to rally against Berea Mid-Park.
Berea Mid-Park has some weapons. They got a pretty good quarterback and Trevor Baczynski. He's got a couple of good receivers. Louis Vega is a guy we talked about a lot last year, I remember. So there's some weapons on that team.
No, and both teams have quite a bit of offense. But one of my concerns about coming into this game was both teams lost last week, and they needed to clean up their defense. So I'm just wondering who's going to be the team that's going to show up in those final minutes to make a final stop and try to see if they can get a win against their fellow Southwestern Conference opponent.
All right. Well, Spencer Davies showed us some of the highlights. So we've seen what St. Vincent-St. Mary has been able to do against Walsh Jesuit. Now he joins us on the phone. Spencer, what have been your impressions about the Fighting Irish tonight?
They've only held them to 17 total yards in the first half, only 1 first down for Walsh. And, you got Terrence Keys again with another big performance, 2 touchdowns, 16 carries for 40 yards. And Luke Lindsay also with 111 yards and a touchdown as well.
What about that defense has jumped out for St. Vincent-St. Mary? Is it fast? Is it physical? What has really caught your eye about the Fighting Irish defense?
Just a ton of pressure. I know it sounds very general, but just a ton of pressure, and they're just looking very, very strong and a lot of energy.
You mentioned Keys and Lindsay. Those are guys that are both sophomores. How have they looked? Have you kind of seen the game slow down, as they say, for them? Do they look, like seasoned veterans? They both played as freshmen.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. They do actually look a lot more experienced than what their class is. It just looks like they're playing with a lot of poise, and it's showing up for them on the score sheet.
What about the Irish has really jumped out? If you were going to tell me something that's really caught your attention about St. Vincent-St. Mary, what has it been?
Just that it's a complete football team right now. And defensively, again, they're just looking very strong. And Walsh had a couple opportunities, but that's it. They're really controlling the position game there on the field, a lot of good field position. And it seems that Walsh is it's too much for them right now to handle, especially with being 21-0 at halftime.
All right, Spencer Davies with the report from St. Vincent-St. Mary, leading Walsh Jesuit 21-0 at half. We'll check back in with him. But the Fighting Irish looking every bit as good to him as they sound to us, and what we've seen from the highlights. The thing that jumps out is that defense was outstanding a year ago. There was a stretch where their offense hadn't scored, and their defense had scored in like 5 straight games.
Yeah, they were still winning.
Yeah.
Even though their offense wasn't scoring.
So they were able to play the freshmen, let them get accustomed, and still they were winning football games, and it's now paying off for the Fighting Irish. And the Fighting Irish have to feel really confident right now because the Walsh Jesuit running game is really minimal right now. It's only under 50 yards right now, and passing, well, Matt Wheatman was only able to convert only 1 pass tonight for 10 yards. So, you know, we're going to see how Walsh Jesuit was able to pick that up in the game. But right now, the Fighting Irish is all over them. So, all right. Well, we checked in with Twinsburg as they tied the game up at 7-7. Solon Comets are a good football team. Their offense trying to answer as they move the football down the field. And the Comets, where do they go? Well, you know where they go. They go to Thomas Wilkes. As the handoff goes to Thomas Wilkes, he gets the corner. Thomas Wilkes, so quick. 11 yards on the touchdown, point after blocked. Ooh, so it is a 13-7 game, just a 6-point lead. We'll continue to check in and see if that comes back to kind of bite the Solon Comets. Remember, last week they went for two two-pointers, and then they kicked a 28-yard field goal to win the game by a point. So
the kicking game in high school, that's just one area where it kind of keeps games entertaining, you know, because you just don't know what you're going to get out of a kicking game. And Solon normally has very reliable kickers. Obviously, we don't know what happened on that block. You know, maybe it was just good penetration by the special teams unit of Twinsburg. But Thomas Wilkes is so good, and you saw kind of why on that highlight. He sort of disappears, and then all of a sudden, here comes number 34 out of nowhere, and now you've got to stop him. He's just a bowling ball. And Wilkes, one of our top play nominees for Week 1. You know, he did the job there, and we're going to see how well the Comets do now. But you know, looking ahead for Twinsburg now, how are they going to answer after that score? Now is going to be the next question because they have the talent, they have the defense to be able to do that. But right now, Twinsburg has to want this more for computer points, obviously. Well, we're going to step aside and take a quick time out. As we go to break, we'll look in on a game from Central Ohio. Hilliard-Davidson taking on Hilliard-Bradley. Friday Night Huddle will continue. This one tied at 3 late in the game. Both teams run. It's already 4th quarter. Yeah.
Your team, your school. Spectrum Sports is your home for Flyers athletics. What you live for lives here. The television home of the Dayton Flyers. Spectrum Sports. Flyers volleyball, Sunday at 1 on Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum.
Have you ever lived for something? Have you ever dreamt of something? Something more? Something special? Something bigger than yourself? Well, have you? This is what you live for!
Home of high school sports. Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 101 Reasons to Watch Friday Night Huddle in the fall, along with Mark Porter from ScoutingOhio.com and Nate Cline from Cleveland.com. I'm Dave Bacon. Guys, 101 Reasons, it's the players. Let's take a look at some of the quarterbacks who will be dominating Ohio this year, and we'll begin with a guy that really started and filled in for St. Xavier and allowed them to win a state championship in Division I a year ago, Chase Wolf.
Yeah, that program always produces quarterbacks, and you're right, he was injured for a little bit, had to take some time to get it. The guy in front of him is headed to Penn State last year, so can you believe 2 Big Ten quarterbacks on the same roster? But again, if you saw Chase Wolf at camps, like you watch him off the field, boy, can he spin the ball. And, you know, a perfect spiral is an underrated thing. This kid can throw a perfect spiral, high level of accuracy. Then you throw in how he grew up and got stronger, and then the power and everything else came with his balls. probably the best quarterback in Ohio this year, but there's a couple other guys that are a close second when it comes to that talent.
Nate, we talk about some Northeast Ohio guys, and Jaden Cunningham from University School, maybe a little bit under the radar, even in Northeast Ohio, threw for over 2,300 yards a season ago.
I think what really helped his case was during the playoffs, as far as the Preppers went in that. But he has experience now. He's a dual threat quarterback. I even had one person tell me he's already comparing him to Troy Smith, which is very big to say that. But Jaden Cunningham brings a lot of intangibles together. He has a big arm, and he showed it off this past season.
2,300 yards passing, over 1,300 yards rushing, and 34 total touchdowns for Cunningham. Another guy to keep an eye on, LaSalle's Griffin Merritt. Was a quarterback who led them to a state championship a year ago.
Yeah, and that's one of those systems where you just got to drive that bus. There's so much talent there. They have one of the best tight ends in the country, 2 great running backs, where he was a system guy, put up a lot of great numbers, didn't turn the ball over, and of course LaSalle ends up in the state championship year after year. He's the leader of that team, especially when it comes to getting things going on offense.
Another couple of guys that I know you like, Mark, one from Northwest Ohio, one from the southern part of the state. Brendan Armstrong from Shelby is headed to Minnesota.
Yeah, and you know what? He got an early offer as a freshman in high school, which brought us all to Shelby, a smaller school. And then he grew up to be a man. As we followed him throughout his camps career, sophomore year, you saw a little bit more. Junior year at camps, he's one of the biggest, strongest arm guys there. Again, spins the ball well, high level of accuracy, and then he's a better athlete than people give him credit. Sometimes when he'd take off for all those touchdowns, you'd say level of competition. He destroyed the level of competition with his legs. That's why he's a Big Ten quarterback right now.
P.J. Fleck, of course, at Minnesota, yeah. So a guy that had some success at Western Michigan. You talk about Jay Volpenheim. I know you like him a lot from Anderson.
Yeah, he was one of my highest rated quarterbacks, and not because of the yards and all the touchdowns, which he had a ton of them, but the ball jumps off his hand, and that's what you look for as a scout. You want to see that ball high velocity, and again, repeated level of accuracy. He had some nice targets, a tight end that would go down the field for him. Made a lot of plays with that arm, and I expect to see him make a deep run in the playoffs this year also.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Welcome back to Friday Night Huddle, week 2 of high school football all across the state of Ohio. One of the games that we're following is that Battle of Catholic Schools from Parma in Northeast Ohio. And it's Holy Name and Padua with a 31-0 lead, but Will Abar gets into the end zone for the Green Wave, and they get on the scoreboard and cut that lead to 31-7. Important because at 31-0, that was a running clock game. So now they're back within 30, and that makes it back to regular timing of that game and buys Holy Name some time to cut into that lead.
Yeah, you got to stop that clock because, we saw in week 1 there were a lot of comebacks. I don't know if Holy Name has that type of firepower, but we did see that there aren't a lot of safe leads in high school football, but if that clock's not stopping, it's a whole lot harder to get back into a game.
Yeah, the running clock just, if that gets away from you, it's, and it's your rival, it's week 2, you need the game experience for your young players, and I'm sure, at this point, Holy Name, last thing in the world they want is for that to be shortened.
And, I don't know that anyone would openly admit it, but that in a rivalry game, you get a running clock. You kind of take some pride in that. You're like, hey, we got a running clock on them, and you don't want to be on the other end of that.
And I wouldn't want to meet the opponent in the grocery store saying, like, oh, yeah, you were that team that we beat this week. So, but definitely this is also a region game as well. So whoever gets the win in this game, and obviously it looks kind of out of reach right now for Holy Name, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, Padua can look at this right now saying this could help us up down in the playoffs as we get further.
Well, we heard earlier from Dan Gillis about the Strongsville Hudson game. So Hudson's offense starting to put things together. You know, they only scored 20 against Fitch in week 1, 28 at half against Strongsville. So looks like the Explorers are starting to put things together a little bit offensively.
Yeah, and that's good news for them. You always know if you're Hudson, you're going to have a strong defense. And it's the years when they've had explosive offenses, when they've kind of gone to the next level and really been contenders. Of course, now that they're no longer in Division I, that's helped them a lot too. But when that offense is clicking along with that defense, that's a really dangerous football team.
Although you say that, and Hoban's in their region
yeah,
now. So
yeah, exactly. So maybe it's not a good
exactly.
thing.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, when I talked to Coach during the summer, you know, he was well aware. He was like, you know, Hoban's in our region right now. Like, not only do we need to make sure we play well, but we need to make sure that we keep an eye on who's behind us as well. But, you know, Cole Pally, we were talking about him earlier, over 200 passing yards. You know, I'm sure that he probably felt like, even though I put up all these yards, I feel like there was maybe a touchdown or two I may have left on the table. So he's going to get an opportunity to present that as well. So yeah.
All right. Well, one of the games that we have been keeping an eye on, Olmsted Falls and Avon. And the Avon Eagles offense flying high. And, you know, with Mike Elder's guys, they're going to put the ball in the air. And they were effective doing it. And here is Ryan Malloy. And he finds Avon grabbing it for the touchdown. And that made it 17-0. A nice grab by Orlando.
What's the hashtag? What's the hashtag, Dan? FNH what? Top plays, right?
Yeah.
Is that it? Is that it?
Yeah, what you guys said. I should probably write that
down. FNH, Friday Night Huddle.
I have it saved in my phone for when I send my plays in. That's what it is.
FNH top plays. Come on, guys.
FNH
top plays. Yeah, we're going to get it. We're going to get it. No,
but, man.
That's a great grab. You know, that'll help out your quarterback.
And you give Ryan Malloy that kind of time to just sit in the – I mean, he didn't even have to move. He was just in a bubble in there.
I don't think he even had to jump either. I don't think he had to. I think his hands were ready. He was ready to go for that. But, you know, obviously, you know, the quarterback had a great showing out in Florida, and I'm sure he wants to show it for the Ohio fans as well. So.
And actually, the score is 24-0. So we cheated him out of a touchdown. That was another touchdown. So 24-0. You know, Ryan Malloy and the Avon Eagles well on their way to being 2-0. And, you know, Mike Elder's guys, that's a team to keep an eye on. If you can go down, the team they beat, Merritt Island, is a perennial playoff team from the Daytona Beach area. You go down in there into Florida and beat them in the first week of the season, pretty good things ahead for the Avon Eagles.
Yeah, and, you know, Olmsted Falls was able to come back from a deficit last week, but this is a different animal than Brecksville. This is a team that, you know, can play some defense too. They're known for their offense, but they can play a little bit of defense. It's going to be tough to close that gap.
And I can only imagine what Olmsted Falls is going through right now, what's going through their mind. This is a conference opponent that we're playing, and this is a team that we could also see in the playoffs as well in Region 6. But Avon, don't you forget that, you know, they went undefeated during the regular season. First round of playoffs, what happened? They were out. And so obviously they got a chance to go down to Florida and say, look, we're going to try to right all those wrongs and see if we can try to have a great season this year.
Yeah, and, you know, I can tell you what Olmsted Falls is saying. Let's make the playoffs and not see Avon in week 1.
Yeah, that's what a lot of teams are saying in that region. Let's do what we need to do to make sure we don't have to play Avon.
Exactly. So Ryan Malloy and the Eagles offense flying high. Mike Elder's offense always doing it. And the thing about Avon is they only play at one speed offensively, and that is fast. So, you know, it doesn't matter if they're up 24, if they're up 7, if they're down 14, they're going to push the tempo and try to throw the ball. And good things ahead for the Avon Eagles as they now lead 24-0. Guys, you know, I think the most impressive thing to me that we've talked about in the first 3 quarters is the way Twinsburg has responded against the Solon Comets. You know, they're last check down 13-7, but that's team starts a lot of juniors, and you know, end of this year, beginning of next year is probably what they were pointing at is let's get it together. A team that won their last 4 games last year, so you know they're riding a 5-game winning streak into this game against Solon, and you know the way they're competing, they're showing it's not a fluke.
Yeah, and this is always a good test when you go against a team like Solon that has a quality win already against Aurora. And for Twinsburg, they're going to face Aurora next week, and then their schedule lightens up just a little.
Right.
So if they can get through this first kind of early stretch, kind of see what they're made of, come away with 2 or 3 wins, they're going to be in a very good position.
Yeah, if I'm Twinsburg in the locker room, I'm like, Coach, why does this game matter to me? Well, this is a Division I team that you're playing. This is a team that's ranked really high in the state as well. We need to get a win tonight, and just being able to put a staple in that in week 2 would go a long way for the Tigers. So,
well, we have another reporter at that game, Jeff Sabo from Solon Educational TV, SETV. Let's check in with Jeff on the phone. Jeff, what's going on with the Comets and the Tigers?
Is close to the end of the third quarter. The Comets are up 20-7. Here in this third quarter alone, Thomas Wilkes, 2 touchdowns, one from 13 yards out, another from over 80 yards out. He currently sits with 4 touchdowns on the season. The Comets started off slow in the first half, took a lot of penalties, but here in this third quarter, Wilkes has really kept the offense going, and he's gotten the Comets not only the lead, but in this ball game.
What about the Solon defense, Jeff? How has the Comets defense performed tonight?
The Comets defense picking up where they left off 1 week ago against a very tough Aurora team. The linebackers are stepping up. They're really getting a lot of penetration through that Twinsburg offensive line. They're really making key stops at certain times in this game, especially here in this third quarter. Yeah, they forced a couple of fumbles, and the defense has really been a key factor for the Comets in this game.
Jeff, got to ask you about Comet the Owl. You got to tell me about this one. I'm curious.
All righty. My grandparents loved high school football. When I started to get into calling the games for Solon back when I was about 15, 16 years old, my dad would always record them on VHS off the Solon channel and give them the opportunity for them to watch it. My grandmother loved owls. Every time I went over to her house, there'd be all these stuffed owls, all these owl figurines. And I bring the owl with me to the games. It's kind of like a tribute to the support my grandparents gave me over the years.
The owl looks pretty popular. Everybody wants a selfie with the owl.
Well, during the first week, not everyone quite understood the meaning behind it, but the owl's starting to gain a following right now. I might start the Twitter page up next week, but still working on that.
All right, Jeff, we appreciate it. Jeff Sabo reporting from the Solon and Twinsburg game. I think I want a picture with Comet the Owl.
Comet, that's great. I love that.
I know.
I've been to a bunch of games there. I know you and I have both done, in various capacities, games at Solon a lot, and it's the first I've heard of Comet the Owl. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was caught a little bit off guard when I saw the image mention me in a tweet. I was like, what is this owl? So I never got a chance to chat with him to talk about that. But I think what really caught me was the VHS tape thing. So
kids Google that.
It's been a while.
High school kids are going to have to Google
VHS.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think we probably bring that owl in studio one day at some point. So,
is that like a wise old Comet thing? Could be.
I don't know. Yeah, we do need that owl in studio, though. You're right.
Yeah. Guys, that owl comes in studio. I will not be in studio that week, I got to tell you.
It's going to be
Have you seen
right here.
They call them talons for a reason.
Comet the Owl.
Yeah. But, what he was talking about earlier with the Solon comments, that's actually interesting because we were talking about Taj Ward, Cincinnati commit, was missing out of action in week 1. But the secondary looked, fairly well last week. They were able to keep the game tight with Aurora and still pull out a win there. But being able to add him to the piece, I'm sure, is a little bit more threatening to the secondary. So,
well, and the thing that kind of slid under that we haven't talked about yet is Thomas Wilkes had a 80-plus yard touchdown run, which means Twinsburg's defense held him, pinned him inside the 20, and Thomas Wilkes turned it into 6 and expanded that lead.
And it speaks kind of to the patience of Solon offensively that even though, as Brian Kaiser told us in the first half, Twinsburg was doing a really good job against Wilkes. Solon knows that's their guy. Solon knows that's the guy that's going to get them where they need to go. So they're going to keep feeding him. They're going to keep giving him the football no matter the situation. And finally, he was able to break free, whether it's wearing down that defense a little bit. He was able to break free and break off some big runs.
I'm sure Thomas Wilkes was getting some pats on the back during the week saying, hey, man, you're in the top plays this week. He was like, yeah, really? Yeah, you know? Yeah, so, I mean, here he did 80-plus yards, and then last week he only had 112 yards rushing. You know, that's pretty incredible. So I'm sure his numbers are going to be pretty well up there unless Twinsburg can hold him to less than that.
So 2 touchdowns already for Thomas Wilkes, and that opens up a nice lead for the Solon Comets. So, you know, we've talked about it a number of times when Twinsburg pushed Solon. When good teams are pushed, they respond. Comets show they're a good team. Division I, Region I, they respond. A 13-point lead now, 20-7.
Yeah, not a lot of. We've talked about it over and over and over again. We're going to talk about it every week. There's not a lot of room for error there, whether you're playing a Division I team, a Division II team, whatever. It doesn't matter. There's not a lot of room for error if you're in Region I.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have teams such as St. Edward and Mentor, and you know, it's going to make it really tough. And so Solon has to make sure they perfect their team each and every week. And so right now, it looks like they're having a good showing of that so far against Twinsburg. So.
Well, the Avon Eagles out to a 24-0 lead. Olmsted Fall Bulldogs are going to fight back. They get the ball inside the 2. Zach Spellacy, the fullback, into the end zone for the touchdown from a yard out. And that makes it 24-7. Pay no attention to the score on the screen. 24-7 is the score of that game as the Bulldogs get on the scoreboard. Important because, again, that keeps it at 17. You can't get to running clock. You can't get back in the game when that clock starts running with the 30-point deficit. But now just 17 as Avon leads 24-7.
Yeah, and for Olmsted Falls, now you've got to count on your defense, and that's tough. You've got to do something we didn't see in that highlight. You've got to get some pressure on the quarterback and try and get past that tough Avon offensive line. And
one of the concerns that you brought up was the running game after last year. You know, how was his response? Now, even though that was very short, minimal yards to get a touchdown, now they got some more points on the board. But that was one concern coming in about Olmsted Falls. You know, how were they going to do well running the football? So obviously, it looks like they got a chance to operate and do that.
The other thing that an offense like Avon will do is if you don't move the football and eat some time on that clock, it just starts to snowball because it gets away from you in a hurry because they put the foot on the gas. They aren't looking for anything other than speed bumps to run over.
Yeah, they just like with Menor.
Yep.
They aren't going to slow down, but that can have a reverse effect too.
Oh yeah.
It means their possessions are going to go quickly if you can get them off the field. That's a big if, but there's still a lot of possessions. There's still a lot of snaps left in this game because of the way Avon plays.
And the other thing that a turnover would do wonders for the Olmsted Fall Bulldogs defense. That's another thing that can't count on, but if you get it, that helps against an offense like the Avon Eagles. We are approaching the top of the hour. That means games will start going final here in the next 15, 20 minutes. We're going to step aside and take a quick time out here on Friday Night Huddle on Spectrum Sports and cleveland.com.
Crew SC Match Day. Every match, 30 minutes before the kick. Delivering everything fans need to know. With live reports, unmatched analysis, club news, and more. After the game, stay here for Crew SC post-match. From the biggest moments to the road ahead, Crew SC Match Day and Crew SC Post-Match. Only on Spectrum Sports. Your team. Your school. Spectrum Sports is your home for Flyers athletics. What you live for lives here. The television home of the Dayton Flyers, Spectrum Sports. Flyers Volleyball, Sunday at 1 on Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum. Tuesday nights are for Ohio college football. Spectrum Sports is teaming up with your favorite site where Ohio State fans gather. 11 Warriors Report. Join the pros from 11 Warriors as they preview the week ahead and deliver everything Scarlet and Gray fans need to know. 11 Warriors Report, Tuesday nights, only on Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to auth-ctoke-auth and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Every week, from the locker room to the pitch and everywhere in between, Access Crew SC is your ultimate inside look at the black and gold. Join Marissa Contepelli, Dwight Burgess, and Neil Sika for unmatched coverage, in-depth analysis, and exclusive talks with the players and coaches. This is your club. This is your Access. Access Crew SC, Wednesdays on Spectrum Sports. Lives here. We are Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum.
Have you ever lived for something? Have you ever dreamt of something? Something more? Something special? Something bigger than yourself? Well, have you? This is what you live for.
Of high school sports, Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum. The final stop, Canton. How you get there? You set objectives. You chase perfection. You do the work. There are many roads to a championship. This week is just one more step. Glenville, St. Edward, Saturday at 7 on Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum.
"101 Reasons to Watch" Friday Night Huddle this fall. We're going to talk about running backs along with Mark Porter from scoutingohio.com and Matt Gould from cleveland.com. I'm Dave Bacon. Guys, running backs, the head of the class is a guy that could very well be special. Was hurt most of last year. Jalen Gill from Westerville South down in the Columbus area.
Yeah, one of the most explosive players you can see in Ohio. Watching him from a freshman year in games and films, you could see the change of direction, you can see the burst, you can see the twitch, you can see the juice, all those words that recruiters use to say elite level player. Jalen Gill is it. He's a hands down, not number one player for his position, but maybe the entire state. Put him on offense, put him on defense, receiver, wherever you want to put him, the best player on the field.
And Matt, a guy I know you like from down in the Dayton area is Ravion Hargrove.
Yeah, Ravion Hargrove. He was the running back MVP at the opening regional at the Browns practice facility this past spring, marching up the leaderboard for state rushing. I believe he's over 5,000 yards right now. Workhorse running back for a team that should be one of the favorites in Division III. Helped him get there last year in Ravion Hargrove.
Matt, another guy I know you like that we've seen, William Collier, was playing for Akron Hoban. He will be playing for Akron East this year.
Yeah, you can make an argument that he's returning home. He played with a lot of those guys growing up over at Akron East. Look for him as a safety as well. I think he's going to get college looks there, but of course we knew him because he was the backup for Todd Sibley over at Archbishop Hoban the last few years. Him and Devanir Floyd, now the feature backfield for Akron East, another Division III team that should be a big-time favorite in that region.
Mark, I know another guy you really like is John Branham Jr. from Columbus Northland, one of the city schools down in Columbus.
Yeah, I had to sit out 5 games at Northland, but when he came on the field, it exploded on the field. One of the hardest working players I've followed, has true dedication to the game. You mix that with his talent, and you may have one of the best backs in his class. He has a combination of power where he can blow through you with his legs and his big, torso. And then when you see him in the open field, he's got the speed to run away from you. I can't wait to see him. He's one of the first kids I want to scout this year in 2019.
Friday Night Huddle, along with Dan Labbe from cleveland.com, Nathaniel Cline from cleveland.com. I'm Dave Bacon. Guys, we're getting towards the end of week 2 as games will be finishing up. It'll be interesting to see can Twinsburg kind of make a run, down 13, still not completely out of reach. They made the hill a whole lot steeper with that 80-yard touchdown run to Thomas Wilkes as they start the 4th quarter.
Yeah, this is a good test for them. Good test for a still young football team. We'll see how they respond against a very good Solon team, and a Solon team that can kind of run some clock.
Yeah.
Give the ball to Thomas Wilkes and just run some clock, unless he gets into the end zone, which is not a bad alternative for the Comets.
And the Common secondary is not going to make it easy for the Twinsburg Tigers to throw the football either. So Twinsburg is going to have their hands full in the rest of this period, in the rest of this time left in the game. So we're curious to see how Twinsburg handles this. So,
the other thing that has been really impressive in week 2 has been the way Shane Ham, freshman quarterback for the Hoban Knights, has rebounded and responded after a tough week 1 against St. Ignatius. Things are going to get easier, kid. Don't worry about it.
You would hope so, but when you're a freshman and you're still kind of learning the position, and you have all this pressure, playing for a two-time defending state champion, taking over for a guy who went to a Division I program, you got to overcome that a little bit. So it's good to see him playing well. And I know Coach Terrell has got to be kind of breathing a big sigh of relief coming off a week where they only scored 3 points. Yes, it was against St. Ignatius, but only scoring 3 points, that's difficult.
But these are those moments when that veteran offensive line as well as those backs have to rally behind him and basically say, look, hey, you know what? We're going to help you get through this game. We're going to help you get through week 2, and we're going to keep moving on here. But Hoban has the tools to be able to pull off some wins here, and so far so good. It looks like Ham and that team is rallying together. So.
Well, and you know what? The Mooney team, that's a really good team, and they're going to win a lot of games. You go into Cleveland Heights and you beat Cleveland Heights, you're a pretty good football team, and things weren't going their way in the first half against Hoban, but that's a team that's going to win 7-8 games.
And I think it's a credit to the Hoban defense actually in this game, because some of the plays that we saw last week, Cleveland Heights, even me, I was like, what is Mooney going to be doing on offense? They had like 3 guys in the backfield, 2 in the backfield, or just all lined up. And so they made it a little difficult for that Cleveland Heights defense. But Hoban looks like they've been able to find out, what Mooney is trying to do and trying to minimize that during this game here.
I watched a good deal of the St. Ignatius Hoban game. I was impressed with Hoban's defense. That's, they've got some big boys on that defensive line, and Hoban held their own up front. I know, St. Ignatius scored 17 points. They hit a big pass play. they really didn't push Hoban around up front like I thought they might. You know, St. Ignatius' offensive line is really good. I mean, number of guys graduated from a year ago. They're still a really big, really good offensive line.
Yeah, 47 yards rushing for St. Ignatius in that first week. So that's something that even coming off a loss, you can look at and say, all right, we did this really well. And if we play like this against teams that aren't St. Ignatius, you know, that 47, you know, maybe in some teams that becomes a negative number.
Right.
I mean, you can play that well if you can duplicate what you did against Ignatius.
And let's try to go back in the Hoban timeline here. In the state championship against Trotwood-Madison, they shut out the Rams in that game. Then you come into the first week of the season against St. Ignatius. They scored 17 points, but like you pointed out, they didn't have any rushing yards in this game. And then so finally now you're facing a team in Cardinal Mooney who's, I'm sure there's going to be throwing some things at you in that backfield. But right now Hoban is handling the defense very well. But one of the big surprises that I saw even in that week 1 game was R.J. Kelly, who plays on the offensive line. He's obviously has some size to him as well, and I'm sure he's being also been disruptive as well. But am I surprised? Not too much, especially after they finished out in the state championship last year. But it's a great sign right now moving ahead.
Sure. You know, you just never know. You know, Danny Clark graduated, Todd Sibley graduated. How are the guys going to respond? And obviously, pretty well.
Yeah, again, it shows the character of your team a little bit.
Yeah, in that backfield, we were talking about the pieces that are gone now, but just along with Ham, you think about those running backs that are back with him right now. They can throw any combination of those guys at you, and next thing you know, then if they want to decide to pass, they'll do that as well. So Hoban has the offense. We talked about that, and you know, on the receivers, we haven't even talked about those guys yet, but I'm sure they're going to get in the game. I think we were even talking about Hauser earlier, who scored the touchdown. So.
Let's check in with Ryan Isley. He is on the phone. He is at the Hoban Cardinal Mooney game. Ryan, what's going on with the Knights and the Cardinals?
Well, guys, I think Cardinal Mooney is going to ask me to call every time they have the football, because every time I call you guys, they score. They just scored a long touchdown pass with 1.5 minutes left. Hoban still leads 31-13. Those are the explosive play for Cardinal Mooney, and Nate can attest to this. Last week, the DBs for Hoban had a little bit of problem with the St. Ignatius offense, and it kind of happened there again on that long pass for Cardinal Mooney. Again, 1.5 minutes to go, 31-13. The pass before that was picked off by Dalton Fitzpatrick and returned for a touchdown for Hoban. That kind of iced it at 31-6. And it looks like now Cardinal Mooney is going to try, I would assume they're going to try the onside kick, but they trail by 18 with 1.5 minutes. And actually they kick off deep. So they're not even trying to get the ball back right now.
Ryan, as you look at it, what jumped out about the Knights as you watched them play against Cardinal Mooney?
I think what jumped out to me, like I talked to you guys a little bit about earlier, was just the way they were able to use the run game to open up the pass game. And I heard you guys talking a little bit while I was on hold about that offensive line. A guy like Nolan Rummer, a guy like R.J. Kelly, 2 Division I college recruits. And when you have that kind of beef up front, it opens up the holes. And these 2 running backs for Hoban tonight have really hit the hole well. They've steadied themselves, unlike what they were able to do last week. And again, it opened up the passing a little bit for the freshman quarterback, Shane Ham. And I think in those last couple of drives that Hoban had, one led to a field goal. Even though they were up big, they were throwing the football. I'm going to ask Coach Tyrell after the game, but I have a feeling that was just him letting his freshman quarterback get his feet wet, throw some balls down the field, and see what he has, just to get him acclimated to playing at the high school level.
Yep, want him to get used to the speed of the game without question. What about that defense? You know, we were talking a little bit about it earlier. I know they gave up some big plays to St. Ignatius, but by and large, that defense played pretty well against a really good offensive line of St. Ignatius.
I think so as well. I thought that up front they played really well against a big St. Ignatius line. They really only had a couple of plays in that game. If you remember, there were a couple of missed coverages in the slot that led to big plays for St. Ignatius downfield, and that kind of led to the touchdowns for Ignatius. Tonight, a couple of big plays for Youngstown Cardinal Mooney. Again, one pretty much in garbage time, if you want to call it that. But by and large, this Hoban defense has been the Hoban defense that we have seen take them to 2 straight Division III state championships and it's going to have to be even better now that they've jumped up to Division II if they want to win a third straight state title.
Ryan Isley, we appreciate it. So let's check back in with Ryan after he gets a chance to talk to Coach Tyrrell and the Knights. Appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks very much. So, yeah, I think Ryan kind of hit it right on the head there. You know, the big plays, if you're Coach Tyrrell, you love that because those are coaching points. Guys, you can't let up. You can't let up. You can't let up. Every play is important. That's going to be the mantra because, you know, even against St. Ignatius, there were some missed assignments, and if they clean that up, whoo-hoo, that defense is fast, and that defense hits.
Yeah, and no matter what the score, you got to play 48 minutes. You can't let up. For Mooney, I mean, this is sometimes the problem they have when they fall behind. They can't really get the passing game going a lot of times, and that seems to be the case tonight as well, throwing the interception, and then they do get that big play, but by then it was too late. It's almost a surprise when they throw the ball, actually, but for Hoban, get that cleaned up, get your freshman quarterback rolling, which maybe he's starting to do now, and you're in really good shape.
And there's nothing like trying to dig yourself out of a hole in a game for Mooney, and so they're going to have to try to find a way to do that right now. But what also helps him in this matter is that also Hoban runs a lot of multi-formations, and so Mooney, I'm sure that if I'm sitting back there in the middle of that Mooney defense, I'm wondering, like, what are they going to be throwing at me this time that I have to prepare for? And then you figure the type of offensive playmakers they have as well for the Knights. So Mooney, again, they're going to have to find a ladder to get up out of that hole right now, and we're going to see what happens. But Hoban has a lot playing they want to play for, and right now they're playing in a very tough region. Looking here at Bedford and Hudson, at least on their list.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. We've got an overtime game down in Central Ohio. Hilliard-Davidson and Hilliard-Darby, the Battle of Hilliard, and it was 3-3 at the end of regulation. Davidson kicked a field goal on their possession in the first overtime. So they led 6-3. Darby with their possession trying to answer. So this is actually in overtime. And they pitch it out. Oh, and there it is. Touchdown for Hilliard-Darby, and they upset Hilliard-Davidson. And done Clint Barnett with the 21-yard touchdown run. And you can tell it's an upset. Darby beats Davidson. They don't need to kick the point after, so it will go as a 10-6 win in overtime for Hilliard-Darby. Big win on the Clint Barnett touchdown run in overtime.
How about that? No, I don't even think anybody touched him.
No, great blocking.
I think we're going to see that play again later tonight. Probably.
You think?
That's my guess. I'm just going to put it out there. I think we'll maybe see that again later tonight. Untouched. Great blocking in front. Got into the end zone for the win.
Hashtag FNH top plays.
Hashtag FNH top plays. We want viewer submitted top plays. We want it. I want a viewer submitted top play. Come on. Somebody.
FNH top plays.
iPhone.
Yeah. Well, Darby obviously needed this win. They came off a 21-point loss last week to Olentangy, and so obviously with a win like this, you know, we were talking earlier about Normandy and what a win can do. They're out to 2 games now, so we're curious to see how Darby's going to take this win and run with it. So.
And Hilliard-Davidson, a team that seems to perennially be in that playoff mix from Central Ohio. Brian White, really good head coach. They like to run the football a lot, kind of done in by their own medicine there is 10-6. Actually, it's 9-6 because they don't have to kick the point after. So 9-6 the final in overtime. Congratulations to Darby.
Yeah.
It's a nice win.
Great job. Getting a game like that, a close, low-scoring game, you've got an opportunity. You know, the shorter that game gets, the bigger your opportunity gets, and they took advantage.
You know, the other thing that has to be impressive is the way the Padua Bruins came out. You know, that's a team, again, we touched on it. They were in the mix to make the playoffs, missed out on it, and have come back, you know, loaded for Bruin, as the case will be, as trying to earn those points early in the season so it doesn't come down to the last week or two of the year like it did last year.
Something's brewing in Padua.
You know, and I'm going to coin the term right now. Is there something brewing with the Brown in Ohio this year? I'm just pointing that out with the Browns and Padua. We'll see what happens. But it's something brewing. But anyway.
That's FNH top plays. Hashtag FNH top plays.
But no, definitely, Padua, with this win, could help themselves in the region right now and, have Holy Name kind of looking back and saying, how are we going to get in the playoffs? So, and it's still got time. But, yeah, but we, too, lost against a region opponent. Doesn't help much. So we'll see what happens after this here.
Well, we've kind of touched on it. Solon with a 20-7 lead on the Twinsburg Tigers in the fourth quarter. Twinsburg trying to battle back into it. And they throw it. Vandemotter gets it out to Isaiah Savitt. Savitt gets into the end zone. A receiving touchdown to go with his rushing touchdown. 20-14. Touchdown and a point after away from getting it done for Mike Bell's Tigers.
And that extra point.
Yeah.
That extra point. Let's see if it comes back to haunt the Solon Comets here. Is Twinsburg fighting back?
Well, good for the Tigers.
Yeah.
Good for the young fellas.
Yeah, and Andrew Mason led the Comets last week with 2 interceptions. So the secondary, obviously they had a lot riding on this week, especially with Taj Ward coming back as well. But to see they were able to get a reception, TD reception in that play that we just saw, speaks a lot of volumes. So.
Yep, well-designed play. They, they swing it out to him, and as easy as a touchdown can get against the Solon Comets. Just a good play call and well executed. So, again, Twinsburg, a nice job to cut it to a 6-point deficit. And I know moral victories don't count, but if you're the Tigers, you got to realize, guys, we hang with the Solon Comets. We're legit.
Yeah, and look, they've got to go play Aurora on the road. And then they've got Cuyahoga Falls and North Royalton, but then you got to play Brecksville, Stowe. You've got Hudson on your schedule. There are some weeks in there where maybe you can go in and you feel confident, although you never know what could happen when you feel like that. But then there's some really tough opponents on this schedule. So this is a very good spot for Twinsburg to start against Solon.
Absolutely. Don't forget, one of the teams they beat on that 4-game winning streak at the end of last year was Hudson, who went to the state semis. So good for the Tigers. Good for the Tigers.
Absolutely.
How about those Knights, guys? We talked about them a little bit. And Division II. So it gets a little tougher. And now, as you alluded to, you're talking about Bedford. You're looking at Avon. That's a Division II team. If you want to get really crazy, LaSalle, who beat Coleraine last week. They're still in Division II. They didn't, they did not move up. So the road to a three-peat for Hoban is going to be filled with landmines, as they say.
Yeah, I mean, just getting into the postseason is going to be difficult in that region. Not that I think Hoban won't be able to do it, but you do stumble a little bit and let some teams get in front of you. You're going to be chasing. You mentioned Hudson. I think Mayfield, at last I saw, was winning, so they could be on their way to 2-0. Twinsburg is in that region. That's a team that we've talked about. Barberton is in that region. Brecksville, if they can get going a little bit and string together some wins, they could be difficult. So just in that region alone, it's not necessarily a power region, but there's some good teams that if you leave that door open just a little, they could come in and take a spot.
And there's also some teams that are very hungry. Hudson has 3 state semifinal appearances.
Yeah.
And they don't want to miss this opportunity ahead. And mark my words, I'm sure that they know of all the teams that are ahead of them in their region, including the newcomer Hoban. So, everyone's going to count and trying to get as many computer points as possible. So.
Well, the good news for Hudson is Maslin Perry moved up to Division I. That's a team that's beat him in the state semis last 2 years.
They probably had a celebration when that happened.
No more wing T in the state semis.
Gosh, throw that tape out. Don't ever look at it again.
The other thing, St. Vincent-St. Mary. Boy, those young guys for the Fighting Irish look like they've grown up in a hurry. Luke Lindsay, quarterback. Terrence Keys. You get production from those 2 positions as 10th graders, and they're just going to keep getting better and better. And that might be a team that down the road, gives Hoban some trouble. That they're built that way because they play some pretty good defense of their own.
And they're neighbors as well. They know each
They're
other.
They're fishing in the same pond there, brother.
They know each other very well. I actually, and I'll share a story with some of the readers. I made a mistake. I went to Hoban's camp, and I actually wore some khakis and a green polo. And good and well, they saw me coming. And they were like, well, who are you coming up in here? And so, we had a great time talking, but both the teams know each other very well. They know all these wins are going to count, and definitely we're going to also be looking ahead soon at some point when they have to face each other this season.
The other thing, every time I talk about Hoban, I still think about, we're getting ready to do Hoban's season opener against Canton McKinley a couple years ago. Nolan Rumler is a freshman, and Ryan Kavanaugh and I walk by him, and I was like, he's a freshman? So we go and we talk to Coach Tyrrell, and he goes, yeah, we had him practicing with the 9th graders for the first practice, and after about an hour, the freshman coach came over and said, you got to get this kid off the field. He's going to hurt somebody. So he practiced half of a practice with the 9th graders before they put him in the starting lineup at left tackle after half a practice as a 9th grader.
And sometimes, when you're going to do a game like that, you're doing your research, you're reading up on guys. Okay, so you see this name, you hear about the recruiting and all that. And sometimes you got to go look for a guy. You watch warm-ups, you got to look around for numbers, look at the roster. You show up to Hoban and oh, that's him right there. I found him.
Wait, the sun is shining. Can you come stand in front of me? Because I don't want to squint. But he's, he committed to Michigan, and that was his dream. His dream was to play at the University of Michigan, so it's outstanding that he gets to do that.
Yeah, and that's got to feel very comforting for Shane Ham, who's the freshman quarterback coming in, thinking like, I've got linemen just like this guy and all these other guys down the list here. There's no way that I should be able to fail. And so, with those guys and the keys that they have around there on offense, Hoban should do fairly well this year. Now, where they will end up, that's up to them. And Shane Ham is leader right now in the backfield. So.
And Shane, as a wily veteran, some advice: roll left, because the left tackle will make sure you have some time. Yeah. Roll left, young man, roll left.
That guy's going to play for Harbaugh. Follow him.
Exactly. So, the Knights getting it done against Cardinal Mooney. Twinsburg, I kind of thought they were going to be able to hang. I'm pretty happy for Mike Bell. Really good coach, really good guy. And how about those St. Vincent-St. Mary, Fighting Irish as well. Eagles look every bit as good as we thought they would. Those Avon Eagles, Mike Elder.
They always do. They never disappoint. Now, obviously, last year they lost in the playoffs, but just when it comes to their season as a whole, they just never disappoint. And Mike Elder just has there's this attitude when you go play for Avon. We've talked about the pace they practice at and the pace they warm up at. Yep. I watched a game of theirs once where he knew he could score at will against the team they were playing. They had a 4th down and 1 inside their own 10-yard line. He didn't even think about it. He went for it. They got it easily. They went down the field and scored a touchdown. And that's the kind of attitude that Mike Elder coaches his team with, and it's just contagious across that roster.
And he's been there enough now. That program is, you just keep filling in with guys that want to wait their turn to step on the field on Friday night and play for Mike Elder. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Week 2 games starting to go final. We'll be right back on Friday Night Huddle here on Spectrum Sports and cleveland.com. Stay with us.
every week. From the locker room to the pitch and everywhere in between, Access Crew SC is your ultimate inside look at the black and gold. Join Marissa Contepelli, Dwight Burgess, and Neil Sika for unmatched coverage, in-depth analysis, and exclusive talks with the players and coaches. This is your club. This is your Access. Access Crew SC, Wednesdays on Spectrum Sports.
This is it. Your big break. Your one shot. Your only chance. There are two outcomes. Make history or be history.
The home of high school sports. Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum. Your team. Your school. Spectrum Sports is your home for Flyers athletics. What you live for lives here. The television home of the Dayton Flyers. Spectrum Sports. Flyers volleyball, Sunday at 1 on Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum. Crew SC Match Day. Every match, 30 minutes before the kick. Delivering everything fans need to know. With live reports, unmatched analysis, club news, and more. After the game, stay here for Crew SC post-match. From the biggest moments to the road ahead, Crew SC Match Day and Crew SC post-match. Only on Spectrum Sports.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Now he shoots it! What you live for lives here. We are Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Friday Night Huddle. We continue to follow Week 2 results. Last time we left, Solon was pushed. The Comets scored a touchdown, 26-14. They led Twinsburg, but the Tigers' offense not giving up. Adam Vandemotter tosses it up. Christian Edgerson grabs it for the touchdown, 48 yards, 26-21. But the Tigers starting to run out of a little bit of time here. Down 5, but time running out on Twinsburg in that fourth quarter. Still, great sign. Tigers keep battling, finding a way to score points.
Yeah, this was a game that got to halftime by about 8 o'clock, 7-0, and now both offenses have started to open up a little bit. It's anything you can do, I can do better, and now Twinsburg needs to get a stop on defense.
Yeah, and that was one question I had for the Tigers. You know, were they going to be able to find any holes in that secondary? And obviously, it looks like they found at least a couple already. But no, definitely, mark my words. Some coaches are probably going to want to get this game film and find out what did Twinsburg do. To find holes in that defense, and then maybe try to see if they can duplicate that as well. So.
They do. The Tigers do have a couple of big play type wide receivers, Edgerson and then Trey Radford, another one. Tall, athletic, fast, makes quarterback's job a little easier. You run down, I'll throw it up, and you run under it. And that's the play right there. And so we'll see. But Jim McQuaid's Solon Comets, really good football team, obviously.
Yeah, it's always one of the measuring sticks. And you know, I'll give you credit. You were all over Twinsburg last year. You saw the signs of how good this team could be, and they seem to be delivering on that. Even though they're losing to a very good football team, and they're showing signs that they can turn this into a successful season.
Well, one of the games we've talked about, the Hoban Knights, they come back from that loss in week 1, and they beat Cardinal Mooney. Ryan Isley had a chance to talk with freshman quarterback Shane Ham. Ryan and Shane, take it away. Okay, well, we're having trouble getting that rolling with Ryan and Shane Ham, the 9th grader who struggled a little bit against the Wildcats. Played very well against Cardinal Mooney. And now we will check in with Ryan and Shane Ham. Guys?
Shane, after playing a defense like St. Ignatius last week, you kind of got your feet wet. It's a heck of a way to get your feet wet. What did you take out of that experience to bring into tonight?
Really just play more loose. Last week, obviously, St. Ignatius, they're big, they're physical. Learn from the mistakes I made against Ignatius. Don't force anything that's not there, and just play football and have fun with it.
You looked a little more comfortable in the pocket tonight. Is that accurate?
Definitely felt a little bit more comfortable. My O-line always does a great job of protecting me. I feel comfortable behind them all the time. Really, just every week I'll just get better and better and feel more comfortable.
How important was it for you guys to get that run game going that opened up the pass game for you later on?
It was very important between me running the ball a little bit and our running backs did a great job of hitting the hole this week. Establish it up front, it helps everywhere. And then you throw the ball, then opens up the run again. So just keep the defense always guessing what's going on.
What's it like when you know that you can throw a ball up to 6 and he just goes and gets it?
It's an amazing feeling. It always bails me out. The touchdown pass, everyone's probably thinking that's a good pass, but really, all wide receiver made a good play on the ball and bailed me out again. But great athlete.
You alluded to your offensive line. How impressive is that front 5 that you guys have here at Hoban?
Very impressive. Best line I've ever been behind. Makes me always feel comfortable. I always know I got time to throw the ball as far as I want, as long as I want, and make sure I can always get the ball there.
And there is the final score, 31-13. Hoban improves to 1-1. Mooney falls to 1-1. And that 6 that he's talking about is Garrett Hauser, a guy that is a Naval Academy commit for the Hoban Knights. Big play wide receiver, had a great junior season and is following up with pretty good senior season through 2 weeks as well.
I'm sure Ham's going to sleep very well tonight after that win, and he credited his running backs, he credited the offensive line, and it was funny. He even pointed out that that's probably the best offensive line that he's played behind. This is your second start. But no,
Middle school doesn't have too many 6'4", 285 guys. Just you can say it certainly is the best offensive line you've played behind.
Absolutely, yeah, and no, so just being able to get those wins in week 2, they can move ahead and see what's in store for the rest of this offense. But Ham, just congratulations. Again, I don't think I probably could have stepped on the field and faced the St. Ignatius defense the way he did. But he bounced back in week 2 and got a win for the Knights. So
that's a great sign for the Hoban Knights. Tim Tyrrell has to feel. You had to know that he was kind of built like that, because if he wasn't, you wouldn't have put him in the situation where he's going to start against St. Ignatius. So Coach Tyrrell had a sense, but it's really good for Coach Tyrrell to see, I was right about the young fella. He's built for it.
It's one less thing you have to worry about. Now you can just continue his development because you saw him play a good game, and now you can approach this week with some real positives to work off of. As opposed to last week. There were positives last week, but again, with only 3 points and some struggles against that really good Ignatius secondary, probably a little more critical last week than you are this week.
Well, one of the games we've been following all night long, St. Ignatius taking on Menor. St. Ignatius opened up a lead. Menor came back. Game was tied at 24 late third quarter. And that quarterback for St. Ignatius, Kyle Hall to Schneider again. Second touchdown of the night between Hall and Schneider. That one makes it 31-24 Wildcats as we start the fourth quarter. How about Kyle Hall and Sam Schneider?
Good throw, good catch, went up and got it.
Look, if no one else is going to point it out, I will. Snyder got in the face.
The official saw it.
He got into the face of the defender, and that just shows the intensity between these two teams right now. And both these teams, they're in the same region with each other. They want this win, and they know when whoever gets this victory is going to have one leg up on the other team looking ahead to the playoffs. But man, I just love that intensity. I love to see that. So.
That's the way St. Ignatius and Mentor have been playing since they met in the playoffs a few years ago. They go back, especially if it's close. If it's not a close game, you don't get as much of that. Tie game, oh yeah. Shane Snyder's going to tell the defenders, you can't cover me.
Those two have probably been going at each other all game, and it turns around and barks a little bit. And, you know, give the official credit, too. He just kind of says something to him and ushers him away instead of throwing a flag or something like that. Don't insert yourself into the game. Just keep things under control.
Yeah, and I just, again, man, I just got excited just watching that play. So kudos to who got that play in the video. But just, man. Matt Gould. Was that? Oh, my goodness. Matt, I'm coming to holler at you later. But heck of a job on that catch and play. I'm sure Kyle Hall has to feel really excited about that. And, man, just be able to get a leg up on the other team in the region playoffs.
Tell you who else is excited about that. Chuck Kyle and his offensive coordinator, Nick Restifo, because now we've got a quarterback to go with Mark Babinski, our big running back. As Kyle Hall, he was getting pressured. Stood in the pocket, delivered it. That's don't sleep on the Wildcats, folks. They were young on both sides of the line, and it looks like in the early going, they're pretty good on both sides of the line.
Yeah, did a good job with pressure coming right at him. The defender jumped up, he threw the ball high enough to get over the defender, found his receiver, and you can kind of just see that connection between those two on that play.
Yeah, and we were talking about it earlier. This was one of my concerns about the Mentor Cardinals. As well as they do on offense, I was questioning about their secondary and how they were going to fare against the Wildcats. And right now, we just saw a touchdown reception against the Cardinals. So, you know, I'm sure they're going to look at tape. They're going to figure out what they're going to do by week 3 when they face, we'll probably preview later, but the Tarblooders.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Well, the game between Solon and Twinsburg, back and forth, and let's see if the Tigers can come back and pull this one out. Vandemotter, the quarterback, deep in his own end, throws, and it's tipped and intercepted. And then taking it into the end zone for the touchdown. I believe that's Taj Ward getting it done for the Solon Comets. He was pushed out of bounds before he got in. So the final score, 26-21. The last-second comeback attempt doesn't get done for the Twinsburg Tigers. Solon's defense comes up with the big interception to shut down any potential long scoring drive there at the end of the game. So Twinsburg had a chance. Comets came up with a play when they needed it.
Yeah, and after that week 1, you know, we got a chance to see the Solon secondary and how they fared against Aurora, and they got a chance to show it off again tonight. Now, Twinsburg was able to find. It looks like they were able to find a couple holes in that defense, but you know, when Solon needed a play, they got it tonight in that final stretch there, and so Solon raises off to another win here.
Yeah, we talked so much about Thomas Wilkes, we haven't talked at all about Taj Ward. And you see his playmaking ability right there, and that's one of those things. If Wilkes is running like he ran tonight in the second half, and then you've got to watch out for Taj Ward in that secondary making plays, this is going to be a very difficult team to play against every single week. For Twinsburg, you know, I don't want to use the word moral victory, but there is some positives that they can take out of this and some lessons to learn as they have a very tough opponent next week.
They're pretty close, you know. Guys, if you were wondering Twinsburg Tigers, you're definitely in that playoff mix without question. If you hang with a team like Solon, a Division I team, you've got the stuff to be a playoff team. Yeah. So, you know, doesn't help on the scoreboard. Tigers don't want to hear it, but a pretty good showing by the Twinsburg Tigers.
Yeah, you know, losing stinks, but when you play a team like Solon the way they did, it's got to get you feeling pretty good. And Aurora is going to get an angry Twinsburg team next week. That's for sure. So that'll be an interesting matchup.
And Aurora, a team going to need to win.
They might be a little bit angry too.
Because Euclid improves to 2-0. They beat Aurora. So Aurora is now in a pretty big hole for themselves.
Yeah. Again, it's maybe too early for must win, but we saw with Mentor. We kept saying that with Mentor last year, and turns out that they needed to get some of those wins early.
Well, you know, the one advantage is they dropped down to Division III, so that will help. But, you know, 0-2 is you have eliminated any margin for error that you had if you're the Aurora Greenmen.
And this is the opportunity that you want to be able to clean up those mistakes now, because they're almost very close to getting ready to get started in their conference games here. So whatever you can do in these first few weeks to clean up the mistakes before you start playing that, and also getting ready for the playoffs, going to be a big help. So,
kind of interesting, you know, as we look at it, Solon Comets have to feel pretty good. You know, they beat really good Aurora team in week 1. They beat a young, improving Twinsburg team in week 2. You know, people don't sleep on Jim McQuaid's Solon Comets. There, you know,
you never should.
You never should, but especially Thomas Wilkes might be one of the more underrated players in this area. He runs low to the ground. He's powerful, and he is fast.
And go ahead.
Yeah, well, and a win is a win too. So just talking about Solon and getting this second win here for themselves, but no, this is definitely going to help them in the region playoff race. So.
And by the way, guess who is looming next week for the Solon Comets? Stowe.
There you go.
We've seen those matchups over the last few years, Division I, Region I matchups, and those have always been exciting games. So both of those teams are going to be going into that game 2-0.
And that game was also down to a tight race as well. I was right in the end zone when that final play happened, when Stowe won that game. So, you know, I'm pretty confident Solon remembers that game at home, and when they hit the road, when they got to go face the Bulldogs, they're going to remember that. And I'm pretty sure they're going to show that. But that's going to be a very tough game. A lot of different personnel changes, but definitely Wilkes is probably going to be another key opponent in that game as well.
Yeah, circle that one for next week.
Yeah, you know, it'll be interesting. You know, Wilkes returns, so does Terry and Ray for Stowe. So you've got playmakers on both sides. Both teams graduated a lot of players, but they're both now the programs where guys are waiting. Okay, it's your turn. Now you get your turn.
And that's probably going to be another game for Solon. It's low scoring, defensive battle. You know, it's not going to be 45-40. It's going to be more like that 15-14 win over Aurora. It's going to be a little more like this one, 26-21. Though I don't even know if it'll be that many points. You know, last year was not a very high scoring game. No. These are two teams that are going to play it tight and play really good defense. That should be a really fun matchup. And a good test for both of these teams, because I don't know if we really know, especially Stowe, I don't know that we know a ton about both of these teams just yet.
And I also kind of wonder with the short week with Labor Day on Monday, I'm just curious, you know, just how are these teams, you know, how are they going to prepare for that week 3 matchup? But these are also going to be some builders for their titles as well. Solon won their conference last year, as well as Stowe got a share of theirs along with Hudson as well. So I'm just curious kind of on the short week, you know, how these teams are going to fare as well. That'd be my question.
We're going to head back to the Mentor-St. Ignatius game as the Wildcats open up a little bit of a lead. The Cardinals, Dan, we've said it, you can't count them out. Tatarunas, oh, look at that. And then throws, Baird grabs it, and Baird into the end zone for the touchdown. 48 yards on the play to cut that to a 10-point deficit. But again, Cardinals running out of time. That one's about 4 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, and St. Ignatius does know how to bleed that clock a little bit. Chuck Kyle is really good at that.
There's a guy named Mark Babinski and a couple of big linemen that they'll run behind.
But typical Mentor, right? Get the ball in space, make something happen. We've seen that year after year after year with this offense, and that was just another example.
We're going to check in on the phones. Bryant Kaiser, who was at that Solon Twinsburg game, joins us. Bryant, what stood out about this one for the Tigers and the Comets?
Well, Solon Comets won this one 26-21. Big play offense. You know, we had Raphael going 64 yards, a 78-yard touchdown. Wilkes with an 80-yard touchdown run, and they got out here with a 26-21 victory. I got head coach Jim right here. You want to talk to him?
Absolutely.
Okay, hold on.
Coach McQuaid, how are you, sir?
Hello?
Coach McQuaid, it's Dave Bacon.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
I'm great, buddy. How are you?
Good, thank you.
You have to be happy with the way your guys responded. Twinsburg pushed you a little bit. That's a pretty good young football team over there.
Well, there's no doubt. We were very worried coming in. We had a ton of respect for Twinsburg, and you know, the last couple years, you can just see each year they've gotten better. And it was a game right till the very end, so there was never any breathing room. And 2-touchdown lead was not comfortable at all. But our guys made some plays, and we'll always be happy to be 2-0. But we'll be back to work tomorrow. We have a lot of things to work on.
Talk a little bit about Thomas Wilkes. That's a running back, started for you last year, and he looks pretty special.
Well, he's done a tremendous job as a leadership role. We have a lot of new guys playing up front and new guys at quarterback, and he's really the veteran guy, and he's embraced that all off season and summer, and that's a credit to him and his family and the kind of guy he is. And he makes us better. When he's rolling, we're rolling, and that's a huge weapon for us to have.
Coach, what type of runner is he? He looks like a guy that he runs physically, but he has a lot of speed. That's a
yes, he does. He's a track guy. He's a good guy on our track team, a regional qualifier in the sprints, and he's a strong guy. He works in the weight room, so he has a good combination, and he's not real tall, so he's got a good power base, and he's been a very good player for us.
Coach, talk a little bit about that defense. Solon is always known for their defense, and your defense. You know, you play Twinsburg, you play Aurora. Your defense has played pretty well.
Well, we have some experience there, some experience on the front line and some experience in the back. They're helping the linebackers out, who are new guys playing. So we're always going to start with our defense. For us to be successful, we're always going to start there and work from there out. And up to this point, 2 weeks, they've done a really good job also.
Coach McQuaid, appreciate it very much. Congratulations on the win and on being 2-0.
Well, thanks a lot. We appreciate all you guys do. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Coach Jim McQuaid, head coach of the Solon Comets, 2-0 on the year, and just a nice job.
Yeah, and you know, you hear him talk about guys, and you can just kind of see that. You can kind of sense that the sort of excitement about having guys like Thomas Wilkes and Taj Ward, and having a team that he's trying to grow. I mean, it's all about growth, right? From week 1 to hopefully week 15. You want to get better and better as things go along, and it seems like that's the arrow is pointing up right now for Solon, and they get a good test next week.
Yeah, and you know, you could definitely sense, you know, the respect and the admiration he has for Thomas Wilkes, because he's got to carry the load a little bit while their new quarterback and their new receivers get a little bit comfortable, and he's a pretty good guy to have carrying the load.
Yeah, absolutely. We've gotten to see highlight after highlight of Thomas Wilkes here in these first 2 weeks.
And it's a great sign to see the coach actually talking about the defense as well, because that's what they're going to have to rely on, especially in these last couple of games here with Aurora going to a tight race as well, and as well as his final with Twinsburg. Next up, now Stowe. Last year, again, that was a very tight race in that game, and so if anybody's going to have to make some plays, it's probably going to have to be the defense if the offense can't match that on the road. So look forward to that game as well.
Yeah, and Coach McQuaid is a guy that will always stress defense, always, 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 always. So he's very much at ease doing that, as you will. And he mentioned his linebackers, and really, you know, unfortunate thing for the football program is Casey Maniglia, a really good linebacker, decided to concentrate on baseball because he plans on playing baseball in college. He's a really good linebacker. 2-year starter for him, would be his senior year. But again, you get it. You get why a guy would concentrate on the sport that he's going to be focusing on in college, and that's what Casey Maniglia had done. Helped lead him to the state Final Four in baseball a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame a guy that's, you know, he's looking to the future. He's got his future is in baseball. He can get himself to college through baseball, so that's got to be his focus. You certainly can't blame him for that. But from an on-the-field standpoint for Coach McQuaid, that's a big loss, and you've got to find a way to replace it. And the good news is, in Solon, there always seems to be somebody who comes along ready to step up.
Well, our Jeff Sabo was also at the game with Solon and Twinsburg. He had a chance to talk to J.T. Caver and to Thomas Wilkes as well. Take it away, Jeff.
J.T. Caver, first off, the time you spent in at quarterback, you really helped get the offense going. What really helped spark the Comets in the second half?
We really in the locker room, we told each other we had to play better, we had to play harder, because that first half it wasn't us. We knew we needed to come out harder. We got on each other in the locker room a little bit, and it helped. We clearly pushed each other.
Exactly. So it sounds like that there's a lot of great leadership on that Solon squad.
Yes, sir. A lot of great leaders.
All right, and take us to that interception very late in the game where Twinsburg has the ball. What was going through everybody's mind?
Well, we knew that they were going to try and throw it on us because there was little time. And I knew I had to stay deep, and I saw a guy run a seam, and I had to stay in between because there was two guys running verts. And I saw my linebacker go for the ball. When the quarterback threw it, he tipped it, and I just took a break on the ball and went to go get it because I'm a ball hawk.
All right, and you definitely did a great job here tonight, so looking forward to seeing you next week, so congrats on the win.
Thank you.
Thomas, take us through that second half. You had one touchdown to kind of get things going. What really kind of started the offense?
Oh, definitely the offensive line. The first half, I wasn't playing like I normally played. I wasn't doing what I need to do. But the second half, offensive line was playing beautiful, opened up holes, and all I did was just run through them. And on the real long run, I would give it up to Sammy Bubonics on the great kickout block, so I could just find the lane. Offensive line, wide receivers, quarterback, it doesn't matter. We did what we had to do to win the game today.
Now, there are a couple times where it seemed like things started to get a little stagnant, and you're giving a lot of credit to your offensive line. What also helped you guys move the offense along?
Oh, definitely our coaching staff. They prepared us. The offense and at halftime, they made some adjustments, and we made some adjustments on the field. Whatever the coaches saw, we just did.
All right, and finally, looking at Stowe next week, what do you expect out of your teammates?
Oh, definitely to pick it up. Play a little bit more physical. We're going on the road again. We got 2 more road games. But Stowe's definitely a quality opponent. We definitely respect them. And we've had a lot of encounters with them. We just want to beat them our senior year.
All right. Hey, thanks, Thomas.
No problem. Thank you.
And there we go.
You're welcome, Comet.
It's the Comet Owl.
Hooty hoo. He's got the hat. Jeff put his hat on there. Nice move, Jeff.
That's right.
Well, I know that's got a sting for Wilkes because I saw you shake as well with his teammate running behind him. So, but, obviously that's kind of a great sign saying, hey, you did a great job tonight and leading the comments. So, off to a win, and next up, Stowe.
There's one thing. You can't coach 4-5, and that's the speed Thomas Wilkes has. And he is so much fun to watch. He gets in the open field, and nobody's going to catch him.
Yeah, and he's powerful. Like he's still, even though he's smaller and he's a speed guy, he's got that power.
He's not really a track guy because he is, but he's not.
He doesn't look like a track guy.
He's not slight of frame. Yeah. If you were a track guy, you'd be like, what is this football guy doing running track? Because he's built powerfully. And so good job by Thomas Wilkes. And the Solon Comets improved to 2-0. And obviously, a big one coming up. There are no small games in Division I, Region 1.
No, there are not. And again, put a big circle around that one because I'm sure we'll talk about that one a lot next week.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because both of those teams. It's been a close game the last couple of years, and last year, if you remember, Solon was moving down to try to tie it, and they had the ball that fumbled, and they were getting close to where they would have been in field goal range to potentially tie it or win it. So.
And the other interesting thing is 2 new quarterbacks. Both teams are breaking in new players at quarterback, and this is really Solon's quarterback has been tested for Stowe. This is going to be the first really big test for their new quarterback, so it'll be interesting to watch that too.
And I'm sure Twinsburg has to sit back in the locker room and say, man, I bet you we left a few more plays on that field that we could have changed as well. So Twinsburg, I'm going to be curious to see how they respond back after week 3. They're split 1-1 right now, but it looks like right now they're finding answers and they're finding some solutions to after last year's finish, moving ahead for week 3. So.
Well, a big game in Division I, Region 1 this week goes final. And it goes the way of the St. Ignatius Wildcats, 41-31. They defeat Mentor, so Ignatius improves to 2-0. Mentor now 1-1, and they have the Glenville Tarblooders waiting for them next week as the Cardinals, 49 points last week, 31 points this week. The offense isn't a problem for Steve Trevisano's guys. And again, St. Ignatius is again right where they were last year, which they were an elite team in Division I, lost in double overtime in the state championship game to St. Xavier, and they're looking like they have the parts to go deep in the playoffs again.
2 really quality wins. I mean, Hoban obviously is a lower division team, but that's not
Yeah,
I mean, that's a Division
now,
I
right?
talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, another Division II as opposed to Division III, but they have a lot of Division I caliber talent, you would say. You know, Menor we know. And for St. Ignatius, I mean, we're going to be able to say that for every game they win this season. That's a really quality win because I've got their schedule right here, and there's nothing easy on this schedule. They turn around and play a very good Euclid team next week. And then they start playing the teams like Detroit Catholic Central. So it doesn't get easy for St. Ignatius. They play a very difficult schedule. It's the way they like it. Same for Menor. Both of these teams have their work cut out for them over the rest of the season.
And for Coach Kyle and the team, I mean, man, just we were talking about it earlier, but just to see that intensity on the field, man, and moving ahead, man, you got to want to have kids that want to play ball right now. Even though it's week 2, you know, you want to make sure that you can get back to potentially maybe they even spot going back to the state finals again to St. Xavier. But you know, great quality win for this program. But Menor, I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, they may really be a good candidate to maybe even win this conference. But Solon, they've got to go through them, the last year's winners.
How about this finish for St. Ignatius? Archbishop Moeller, St. Xavier, St. Edward.
That's the way
that's their final 3
They do that every
games.
year.
I know.
It's like
just
we got to get to the first round of the playoffs so we can get a breather.
Wow.
So Ryan Isley, one of the hardest working guys in Northeast Ohio. We heard him talk to Shane Ham earlier. Now he'll talk to Hoban head coach Tim Tyrrell. Take it away, Ryan.
Running, and both running backs tonight did just that.
Yes.
It seemed like they ran up the middle a little more than last week. Last week seemed like they tried to scamper outside a little more.
Yeah.
Tonight it looked like you guys went between the tackles.
Yeah, well, they learned from their film. They still have some stuff to learn. But you know, they did a very good job of being more physical in their running. They had their shoulders downhill. You know, DeLon Carter's our running backs coach, and he really watched a ton of film with the kids this week, and that was his style of running, and he wants to have those kids emulate what he did.
Coach, what about your freshman quarterback? You put his feet to the fire last week against a team like St. Ignatius.
Yeah.
He talked to me a little bit ago about what he learned from last week and took that into this week. How impressed have you been so far with what he's been able to do and as a freshman stepping into that situation?
He's going to learn as he goes with the mental side of things, how to handle games, how to know situations, know what to do in situations. Where he's really good, that he acts like he's a senior already, is he doesn't let things bother him. Even when he makes a mistake, the coach yelling at him and getting in, he never bats an eye. And he's got to get better week in and week out. He made some mistakes this week, and you know, if he does what he did last week and watches the film and learns from it, he'll keep getting better every single week.
How important is it for somebody like that, for a freshman quarterback, to come into a situation where you're kind of a veteran-laden team,
yes,
where he doesn't have to be the leader?
You know, with him, he knows his role. He's not naive, and he's not speaking up and giving speeches. He's not Danny. You know, he has a lot of years before he gets to that side of things. We tell him to just learn how to be the leader of the skill. You know, and Garrett Hauser and Nate Bauer do a very good job of bringing him along with that on the skill side of things with those kids. But he doesn't talk to the O-line. You know, R.J. Kelly and Nolan Rumler and Kate Thomas, that's their job. So he's not really allowed to talk to them.
Crew SC Match Day. Every match, 30 minutes before the kick. Delivering everything fans need to know. With live reports, unmatched analysis, club news, and more. After the game, stay here for Crew SC Post-Match. From the biggest moments to the road ahead, Crew SC Match Day and Crew SC Post Match. Only on Spectrum Sports. Your team, your school. Spectrum Sports is your home for Flyers athletics. What you live for lives here. The television home of the Dayton Flyers. Spectrum Sports. Flyers volleyball, Sunday at 1 on Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum. Tuesday nights are for Ohio college football. Spectrum Sports is teaming up with your favorite site where Ohio State fans gather. 11 Warriors Report. Join the pros from 11 Warriors as they preview the week ahead and deliver everything Scarlet and Gray fans need to know. 11 Warriors Report, Tuesday nights, only on Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to auth-ctoke-auth and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Every week, from the locker room to the pitch and everywhere in between, Access Crew SC is your ultimate inside look at the black and gold. Join Marissa Contepelli, Dwight Burgess, and Neil Sika for unmatched coverage, in-depth analysis, and exclusive talks with the players and coaches. This is your club. This is your access. Access Crew SC, Wednesdays on Spectrum Sports. Lives here. We are Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum.
Have you ever lived for something? Have you ever dreamt of something? Something more? Something special? Something bigger than yourself? Well, have you? This is what you live for!
Home of high school sports, Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum. The final stop, Canton. How you get there? You set objectives. You chase perfection. You do the work. There are many roads to a championship. This week is just one more step. Glenville, St. Edward, Saturday at 7 on Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Friday Night Huddle. I'm Dave Bacon. Week 2 of high school football all across the state of Ohio is winding down, and we are getting ready to take a look and listen and see what exactly happened in Week 2. Along with Dan Labbe, Nate Cline, I'm Dave Bacon. Guys, if you're the Solon Comets, you have to feel pretty good about the way your team responded. Pushed, which is always a good thing. Now 2 weeks in a row as they've pulled out games late, so getting some tests early in the season, never a bad thing.
Yeah, 2-0. Their schedule doesn't get a whole lot easier moving forward. Beat a very young, hungry Twinsburg team tonight that kept fighting back, kept making them work. That's a good start to their season for Jim McQuaid.
Yeah, we were talking about Thomas Wilkes earlier and just the performance that he put together. They're going to need him in the stretch here, and they've got one more game before they start getting into the conference conference games here But, you know, they're going to be heading off to the Rolling Stone, don't you think? And Thomas, I'm surprised he didn't bring up that loss last year, but I guess it's probably went out of his mind. But it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a real good game. It's going to be worth the ticket to watch. So,
well, we're going to take a look at some Week 2 scores. And we've already told you that Mentor loses to St. Ignatius by a score of 41-31. Hudson hangs on and defeats Strongsville 35-21. Avon with a 24-point win. We saw that, 31-7. Hoban, impressive, with a 31-13 win. Solon, 26-21, as they had that interception that clinched it. There's the Euclid score. Euclid improves to 2-0, so we've glossed over that a little bit. Jeff Rotsky's Euclid Panthers start 2-0. They beat Glenville in Week 1, come back and follow it up with a 6-point win over Aurora. That's another one of those Division I, Region 1 teams. St. Vincent-St. Mary wins by 20, 28-8 over Walsh Jesuit. Padua all over Holy Name, 38-7. The Bruins looking good in the early going. How about that one? St. Xavier in overtime defeats Coleraine. So now the Coleraine Cardinals 0-2 as they lost 7-3 to LaSalle a week ago. They lose to St. Xavier 20-17. And I'm told that's in a rainstorm as well. Here's probably the surprise, the upset of the night is Hilliard Derby in overtime defeats Hilliard Davidson 9-3, and Wayne evens their record at 1-1 as they defeat Olentangy Liberty 17. And look at what Berea Mid-Park hung on Westlake, 65 points, 65-36. The Titans, remember the Titans? They just scored 65 points.
3-7. 3-7 a year ago, but they have their quarterback back. They have some weapons back. That's a team that has kind of always been able to score a bunch of points. It's just a matter of whether they can play any defense, and I guess they must have played just enough defense tonight.
Yeah, I'm definitely myself and Matt Gould, we're going to go back and look at what exactly did Berea Mid-Park do to put up 65 points. Obviously, you point out they have a lot of offensive weapons, but man, that's got to be pretty interesting considering they're playing in the Southwestern Conference, where you got to face Avon, who can also put up some serious points as well. But yeah, that was a score that really caught my attention. In addition to a couple of overtime games as well.
Yeah, the thing that stands out, we didn't go as in depth with Euclid, but Jeff Rotsky has to be thrilled. Those are two quality opponents that you beat. Now, granted, it's two Division III teams, as both of them moved down. Didn't know that when they scheduled them. They were Division II teams when they scheduled them, but still, very good football teams. And you start the year 2-0. Euclid Panthers have to feel pretty good. They're rebuilding the stadium and turf on the field, so things are looking good down in Euclid.
If you follow the story of Euclid and when Jeff Rotsky came on board a couple years ago, this is a really interesting story. There wasn't a lot of guys coming out for the football team. Jeff Rotsky gets in there. Everyone's getting really excited about football, and now look, they're up 2-0 right now to start the season, so they're doing a great job. And also at the same time, think about it, C.J. Hill, who's their new quarterback this year, had a terrific outing against Glenville in Week 1, and I'm curious to read this story when it comes when we get ready to publish on that and see how they did tonight. So, but heck of a job.
They get to play a very good, very excellent St. Ignatius team next week, so we're going to get a very good idea of just how good Euclid is come next week.
So 2-0. Celebrate 2-0. Don't worry about what. That's for Sunday or Monday.
Think
right now, you're celebrating 2-0.
Enjoy this one because you're going to have a tough week ahead of you, getting ready to play the Wildcats.
Yeah, and the Wildcats defense. I mean, I'm sure they're going to probably present some things that Euclid hasn't seen yet, and Euclid's going to have an opportunity to see where they can do better. And obviously, they've got a very small window because of the region that they play in, and we handed on all those teams that they're going to have to face in the region as well. So,
well, our Spencer Davies covered the win for St. Vincent-St. Mary. They won 28-8 over Walsh Jesuit. Spencer got a hold of Marcus Watley and a very special guest after the game.
Luke and Terrence, playing like, their experience.
Right. Oh,
you know, we're young, but I tell people we're young, but we're talented. So I'll take that any day of the week. And, you know, our goal is to grow every day. And they grow a little bit today, and we got better. And not many 15-year-old kids start games and perform the way they've done. But, you know, we get better every day, challenging each other because we got a pretty good team. So they see good defenses and we see good offenses. So they're a good symbol of what our team is right now. Young guys growing up day by day, game by game. And Luke and Terrence are two special kids, and you play the best kids, you know what I mean?
You talk about Keys a little bit. I mean, how big of a role does he play for you guys?
I think Keith gives us an identity on and off the field. He's probably our hardest worker in the weight room and in conditioning, and he runs the same way. He breaks tackles. He's fast enough to break the long run, quick enough to make people miss, and strong enough to run through like he did that short yardage run at the goal line. Right now, he's a big part of our offense, and hoping like to grow, get our receivers involved a little bit more. But you know, you come down here, it's a tough game, it's a tough environment, it's a rivalry, and whatever it takes, man, you're gonna take it.
There you see the final score, 28-8. Marcus Watley, second-year head coach for St. Vincent-St. Mary, took over for Dan Borman, and Marcus actually played for Dan at Copley, where Borman was before. So part of that coaching tree, and had a young one there.
Yeah, maybe looks like be a pretty sound tackler one day.
Yeah, got to keep him off the face mask though. He kept grabbing at the face there. So, but Marcus Watley, good young head coach as well, is 20-point win, 28-8. St. Vincent-St. Mary defeats Walsh Jesuit.
Did anyone else notice the hat?
Oh, a football hat. Love it.
Come on, did anyone else notice this? That should be a top picture.
There you go.
So, but great. But you know, hats off to the Fighting Irish. I was actually curious. I actually wanted to see the famous bell that the team wins when they play each other. But yeah, no, St. Vincent Mary, you know, they're moving ahead here. They've got a very tough region that they play in. We've been talking about those teams ahead as well. But this is you know, another notch in their belt here. So we'll see how they do.
So nice win. You know, it's always good when you beat one of those rivals that you have, and you know they have Hoban looming in a couple of weeks. So that'll be a real interesting game because both teams play good defense. You've now got the running game, and you got you have two young quarterbacks, a sophomore in Luke Lindsay for St. Vincent-St. Mary, a freshman in Ham. So that's going to be an interesting football game.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many games coming up that are going to be just great, and that's one of them. Obviously, a great rivalry. Two teams that have state championship aspirations, and that's what you want to see on a Friday night or a Saturday night in high school football, is two powerhouses going at each other, and we're going to get to see that in that game.
It'll be very interesting. So, you know, the other thing we've kind of glossed over a little bit, St. Ignatius, you know, those are two nice wins. You beat Hoban, you beat Menor. They present different challenges. You know, Hoban, you know they're going to try to run the football. You know they're going to be physical. You were able to be physical. You were able to win a low-scoring game. You were able to win a high-scoring game. You're answering some questions early in the season if you're Chuck Kyle, and he's been doing this a while and doing it at a really high level for a while.
Yeah, you talk about the old basketball schedule, right? Obviously, football is different because you have to make the playoffs. But in basketball, they try and schedule a bunch of different types of teams so that you've played a bunch of different types of teams. By the time you get to the tournament, you're going to play more unfamiliar teams. That's sort of what St. Ignatius' schedule is set up to do. So if they can win enough to get into the postseason, they're going to have played a team like Hoban, a team like Menor. They'll have played spreads, pro styles, all kinds of different offenses by the time they get to the playoffs. But they got to win their way into the playoffs. They're off to a good start now.
And to credit to St. Ignatius, I mean, we all know that they hold the record for the most state championships, which is about 11. So they know Coach Kyle's been there. He knows what's going on. He knows how to prepare his guys during the regular season, and they proved it again against Menor tonight. And we're going to see what happens in week 3. So.
You know, it's kind of interesting. For a while, they were having to travel to Philadelphia and all parts east to get games. So they're thrilled when they find any Ohio team that's willing to schedule them, and so they're able to do that this year. That's good.
And that's what you love about Menor. Menor's not afraid to schedule anybody.
Yep.
You know, they'll play. You know, pull up their schedule here. They've already played Massillon, played Ignatius. They've got Glenville. You know, then of course they start getting into league play, but.
Xavier last year.
Yeah, Jeff Trevisano's not afraid to play anybody, and he's not afraid to play them anywhere either.
Yeah. And that's, you know, the goal is the same. Make your regular season as tough as you can while able to get into the playoffs so that by the time you reach the playoffs, it's second nature to play tough games.
Yeah. But let's also not forget about the Cardinals last week. You know, they got off to a slow start, and even though they won the game, they found a way to do that. But they got off to another slow start against St. Ignatius, and I'm wondering, is that a key that they're going to be looking at come week 3 when they have to host? Actually play Glenville next week. So that's going to be some area that I think this coaching staff is going to have to address to their players, and we're going to see what happens when they play
the Menor win over Massillon looks a little better, taken in the context that Massillon went out and beat Glen Oak pretty handily tonight. So that Massillon Tigers team is a pretty good football team. That Menor, they started slow, but they ended up dismantling them. They put 49 on the board against the Tigers.
I think you're going to see some red and gray Letterman jackets over at Lakewood Stadium tomorrow, watching that Glenville St. Edward game, getting ready to face the Tarblooders.
And we'll be there.
And Dave Bacon
and Nate Cline will
and
both
Nate Cline.
be there.
You guys can
come and
keep
say
me
hello. You know, week 2 wrapping up, and you know things are starting to take shape, and those first 3 weeks are critical for teams, because then you get into conference play and you can't control who you schedule outside of the first 3 weeks, really. And that's one of the reasons that the first 3 weeks are so critical, is because that's some teams, you need to get those first 3 weeks, or you know the playoffs are not going to be easily achieved.
Yeah, I mean, I think Aurora is a good example. This is a team that lost to Solon.
Yeah.
Now they've lost to Euclid, and there's no shame in that. Those are Region 1 teams. You played those games tough. They've got Twinsburg next week. But then when they get into their conference, not every week is a week that, each win is going to be counted the same. So, there's some teams in there that they should beat, but it's not going to help them that much to beat them. So these early games for a team like Aurora are very important. And then all these Region 1 teams that are in conferences, they're huge.
And the interesting thing with Aurora is Twinsburg's a huge game, because we saw what the Tigers can do. They're going to end up being a team that wins 6, 7, 8 games, because you hang with Solon the way they did, and you win like they did in week 1 over Copley, they're going to win some games.
And Aurora is actually a favorite in their conference to win right now. So I'm curious, what are they going to try to clean up in these first few weeks here before they get started and playing that? But obviously they're projected to do well this season. They're projected to make the playoffs. But right now they got to clean up these first couple of games here, and it was just a couple tight races, and I'm sure they probably left some plays on the field like we were talking about earlier. So. Yeah,
and the challenge for Aurora is going to be, obviously they've got that matchup with Barberton, and that's a team so that's their hurdle in the Suburban League. That Aurora Barberton matchup is, that's what the Suburban League and that half or that part of the Suburban League will likely come down to.
The good news for Aurora, though, is there's a lot of Division II teams in their conference. So in that regard, they can get help, because they have Talmadge as a Division III, Revere is a Division III, but everybody else they're going to play from here on out is a division up from them. So if they can win those games, win out, come close to winning out, they'll be in good shape.
Yep. The advantage, obviously, Division II gives you a half point more on the first level points, and when you average them together, that has an impact, and it has an impact that they're dropping down from 2 to 3 as well. So certainly plenty of time, but again, as you get into it, your margin for error, you've kind of reduced it greatly if you're the Aurora Greenmen.
It's never too early to talk playoffs. We're in week 2 and we're already talking playoff implications. It's never too early.
No, absolutely. And also, as soon, the AP voters are going to start looking at some of these teams if they haven't already, and trying to decide, who are some of the top teams in the each division. And then before you know it, come playoff time, regular season already is almost over. So
yeah.
You only get 10 of them. Remember,
That's
you
true.
only get 10 of them.
Well, before you know it, it's week 4, it's week 5, and now maybe you are scrambling if you haven't valued those first few weeks.
So, a couple of things that jump out. The 65 points that Berea Mid-Park put up. And I know Westlake's defense struggles some, but 65 points is 65 points. That's an offense. And keep in mind, they lost to Strongsville in week 1, fell behind big early, and then almost rallied. So you take away that first half, and the Titans' offense has blown up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, they put up 34 against Strongsville. This is a team that has always sort of been able to score, a little bit like Brecksville. They've always been able to score. It's been about the defense. The problem Berea Mid-Park has is, again, look where they are. Region 1. Look at the rest of their schedule. All Division II teams. So, you know, they've got to keep playing well, but circle that October 27th game against Avon and block out about 4.5 hours because that could end up being a very, very long football game if both those teams are scoring at a high rate.
Order light bulbs for the scoreboard because they may get burned out.
Maybe move that up to like a 3 o'clock start or something.
You might have to add that third digit to the scoreboard on the field so you can hit triple digits. Well, we're going to step aside and take a quick time out. Our top plays are coming up. We've got a little bit more of Week 2 of Friday Night Huddle here on cleveland.com and Spectrum Sports, along with Dan Labbe, Nate Cline. I'm Dave Bacon. We'll be right back.
Your team, your school. Spectrum Sports is your home for Flyers athletics. What you live for lives here. The television home of the Dayton Flyers. Spectrum Sports. Flyers volleyball, Sunday at 1 on Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum.
Have you ever lived for something? Have you ever dreamt of something? Something more? Something special? Something bigger than yourself? Well, have you? This is what you live for!
The home of high school sports. Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 101 Reasons to Watch Friday Night Huddle in the fall, along with Mark Porter from scoutingohio.com and Nate Cline from cleveland.com. I'm Dave Bacon. Guys, 101 Reasons, it's the players. Let's take a look at some of the quarterbacks who will be dominating Ohio this year, and we'll begin with a guy that really started and filled in for St. Xavier and allowed them to win a state championship in Division I a year ago, Chase Wolf.
Yeah, that program always produces quarterbacks, and you're right, he was injured for a little bit, had to take some time to get it. The guy in front of him's headed to Penn State last year, so can you believe 2 Big Ten quarterbacks on the same roster? But again, if you saw Chase Wolf at camps, like you watch him off the field, boy, can he spin the ball. And, you know, a perfect spiral is an underrated thing. This kid can throw perfect spiral, high level of accuracy. Then you throw in how he grew up and got stronger, and then the power and everything else came with his balls. Probably the best quarterback in Ohio this year, but there's a couple other guys that are a close second when it comes to that talent.
Nate, we talk about some Northeast Ohio guys, and Jaden Cunningham from University School, maybe a little bit under the radar, even in Northeast Ohio, threw for over 2,300 yards a season ago.
I think what really helped his case was during the playoffs, as far as the Preppers went in that. But he has experience now. He's a dual threat quarterback. I even had one person tell me he's already comparing him to Troy Smith, which is very big to say that. But Jaden Cunningham brings a lot of intangibles together. He has a big arm, and he showed that off this past season.
2,300 yards passing, over 1,300 yards rushing, and 34 total touchdowns for Cunningham. Another guy to keep an eye on, LaSalle's Griffin Merritt. Was a quarterback who led them to a state championship a year ago.
Yeah, and that's one of those systems where you just got to drive that bus. There's so much talent there. They have one of the best tight ends in the country, 2 great running backs, where he was a system guy, put up a lot of great numbers, didn't turn the ball over, and of course LaSalle ends up in the state championship year after year. He's the leader of that team, especially when it comes to getting things going on offense.
Another couple of guys that I know you like, Mark, one from Northwest Ohio, one from the southern part of the state. Brennan Armstrong from Shelby is headed to Minnesota.
Yeah, and you know what? He got an early offer as a freshman in high school, which brought us all to Shelby, a smaller school. And then he grew up to be a man. As we followed him throughout his camps career, sophomore year, you saw a little bit more. Junior year at camps, he's one of the biggest, strongest arm guys there. Again, spins the ball well, high level of accuracy, and then he's a better athlete than people give him credit. Sometimes when he'd take off for all those touchdowns, you'd say level of competition. he destroyed the level of competition with his legs. That's why he's a Big Ten quarterback right now.
P.J. Fleck, of course, at Minnesota, so a guy that had some success at Western Michigan. You talk about Jay Volpenheim. I know you like him a lot from Anderson.
Yeah, he was one of my highest-rated quarterbacks, and not because of the yards and all the touchdowns, which he had a ton of them, but the ball jumps off his hand, and that's what you look for as a scout. You want to see that ball high velocity, and again, repeated level of accuracy. He had some nice targets, a tight end that would go down the field for him. Made a lot of plays with that arm, and I expect to see him make a deep run in the playoffs this year also.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Welcome back to Friday Night Huddle here on cleveland.com and Spectrum Sports, along with Nate Cline and Dan Labbe from cleveland.com. I'm Dave Bacon. Let's head back to the phones, and we will check in with Dan Gillis. Dan was at the Strongsville Hudson game. The Explorers come away and improved to 2-0. Dan, what stands out about this? What can you tell us about the Explorers and Mustangs game?
What stood out really was the play of quarterback Colt Pillay and their ability to go down the field at will. A lot of big plays early on that really led to some early scores for Hudson, and then when it mattered late, it was Colt making the plays with his legs with a 10-yard scramble at the end to kind of ice the game. Also, an opportunistic defense. They forced a couple of big turnovers. 2 interceptions off of Strongsville's Johnny Major, and then I think another fumble recovery. And those really played a big part in the final outcome.
Did you feel that was Strongsville able to move the ball on Hudson's defense, and then it was just the turnovers, or in the past Hudson's defense, 21 points is a lot for them to give up, to be honest.
Yeah, they actually in the second half they moved the ball a lot better, and they had one scoring drive in the early going to cut it to 7 points, and then actually moved the ball again and had the ball inside the red zone as the third quarter was winding down and the fourth quarter started. But the Hudson defense bent but didn't break and forced a 3-and-out down inside the 15, and from that point, really that was Strongsville's best chance to really make a game out of it. And Hudson they took the ball down the field and wound up capping it with a touchdown, and that's all she wrote. But yeah, Strongsville, especially like I said in the second half, Johnny Major made a lot of plays with his legs, kept a lot of plays alive. They were putting pressure on him all night long, and he was very impressive. Strongsville, they could be a team on the rise. They hung with Hudson. They showed they belonged.
Hey Dan, what about the running game? Was Hudson able to run the ball other than Pillay at all? That's something that they've kind of struggled with in the early going.
Yeah, they didn't run the ball that well tonight. Kevin Callahan finished. I had him with 44 yards on 16 carries. They really kind of went. They really kind of went to the air more than they ran. I think Strongsville defense, they were trying to stop the run, and they were just beating them with the pass. Although when it mattered at the end, when they were trying to kill the clock and run the clock out, they were able to get some nice runs from Callahan to extend some drives and melt some time and put the game on ice. So when it mattered, they picked up some yards. But for the most part, I mean, when you look at the stats, it was not a very kind of a pedestrian running attack for the Explorers tonight.
Dan Gillis, we appreciate it very much. He's reporting on the Hudson win over Strongsville, 35-21. And up next for the Explorers, they'll get a test next week. They've got the Canton McKinley Bulldogs down at Tom Benson Stadium.
So what gives me kind of pause when I think about this game is that was this more of a credit to the Strongsville offense or a concern for the Hudson defense to see that many points get scored for the Mustangs? I'm sure Strongsville is okay with that and they're happy with it, especially in the region that they have to play in with all the opponents that they do. But just thinking about Hudson down the road, you know, how do you allow those many points to get scored on you? But obviously, you know, in talking with Dan just earlier, just listening to him, you know, their quarterback used their legs. And I think maybe that might have been a difference, but you just can't have that many points scored on you, especially in week 2. You got to clean that up. So
they're a little bit beat up defensively. They lost 2 of their really good players, and they're not coming back. So Saxon and Dean Palumbo were very good defenders. Front 7 guys, you know, they'll move them into the linebackers, and both of them have injuries that will keep them out of the, you know, for the remainder of the season.
And
so that'll be a challenge.
It'll be interesting to watch if running quarterbacks cause them problems throughout the season now. Strongsville put up 48 last week. It was against Berea Mid-Park, who might not be great defensively, but they did put up 48 points, so that's a team that can score a little. Maybe that 21 will age a little better if we kind of see what Strongsville is offensively week to week.
And to add what you said, I had to go back and look at how they finished last year. It was a 35-20 game as well. I mean, they scored 20 points in that. So now is, you know, where is this? I mean, does Hudson clean this up as the weeks go along or what? But just that's too many points. I've seen them. So
it's kind of uncharacteristic too of what they've been in the past. Well, we mentioned big win for the St. Ignatius Wildcats as they win by 10 over Mentor to improve to 2-0 on the year. Kyle Hall, quarterback, had a very good game against the Cardinals.
Go up big early, 24-10. Yeah. Mentor pulls back. Yeah. What do you think allowed you guys to separate yourselves with that 17-point run?
Well, there's no doubt we have the best coaching staff in the state. And also, our offensive line, wideouts, running backs, when you have that kind of chemistry and that kind of talent on the side of the ball, it makes it easy as a quarterback to kind of maneuver. You know, the coach's adjustments make it easy. I came out slow. I didn't have a particularly great first quarter. And with all their support and the line picking me up, the mistake I make, they have my back. Same with the coaches. It just works. We work really well as a unit. It makes it easy.
What do you attribute these first 2 games to for yourself?
Well, you know, the offensive line gives me all the time in the world. No doubt with all of them. Best offensive line to play behind. If I had to pick one, that's it. And the receivers, sure, none of them are 5-star recruits, but if I'm a college, I want them on my team because they're the ones that run good routes, are always prepared, they know what they're doing, great hands, hard workers, and they have a lot of talent too.
You know, I was thinking you got some pretty nice big linemen.
2.
Yeah. It looked like Mentor was getting you advantage early.
2 games into his high school career, credits the offensive line, credits the receivers, most importantly, credits the coaching staff. This is a vet. This is a seasoned vet doing interviews.
Despite the win today, he's going to start again next week. Coach is not going to have a problem with that. He can do whatever he wants during the rest of the week. Oh, you're coming back week 3. But no, great. You know, congratulations to the St. Ignatius Wildcats. Stay ahead in the region race here. And yeah, just again, like I said, we were talking about earlier, I just love that intensity and just seeing between the 2 teams. But yeah, it sounded like he said a lot of great things tonight. So
somebody taught him well.
Absolutely. He's a quarterback that knows who you have to thank, the line and the coaches, and then your receivers who catch the football. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout, and we will be working on our top plays from week 2. You're watching Friday Night Huddle here on cleveland.com and Spectrum Sports. Stay with us.
Your team. Your school. Spectrum Sports is your home for Flyers athletics. What you live for lives here. The television home of the Dayton Flyers. Spectrum Sports. Flyers volleyball, Sunday at 1 on Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to auth-ctoke-auth and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The final stop, Canton. How you get there? You set objectives. You chase perfection. You do the work. There are many roads to a championship. This week is just one more step. Glenville, St. Edward, Saturday at 7 on Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Friday Night Huddle here on Spectrum Sports and cleveland.com, along with Dan Labbe and Nate Cline. I'm Dave Bacon. Time to take a look at our top plays, some of the best work of the week here in Week 2. And we begin with our play number 15. It's St. Ignatius and Menor, and we've seen this one. Kyle Hall, we heard him, now we're going to see him. He finds Sam Schneider.
Such a good throw.
Right on the money. A nice job by Kyle Hall to Sam Schneider. Checking in at number 14, Austintown Fitch in Brunswick. And here we go. Quarterback keeper diving into the end zone. It's Brock Zielinski for Fitch. Holland Springfield, a viewer entry.
Here it comes.
A.J. Gucciardo.
On that bowl.
One of the top in the state. He finds Adam Beal for the touchdown. Hashtag FNH top plays.
Yeah.
Get you there.
Yeah.
We'll get you on that right there.
Here we go from last night. Sam Coleman gets into the end zone for the touchdown for Troy as they win down Dayton way. Hoban and Mooney, play number 11. Tyrus Dickerson. Take a look at this
Finding
one.
his way there, finding his way in there.
Boop.
Oh.
Into the end zone. Good balance, good cutback.
I love that run.
Play number 10. Huber Heights Wayne. Oh, take a look at this. Brown. Outside. Oh, then nobody's there.
Wow.
Gets into the end zone for the touchdown. Back to Brunswick and Austintown Fitch. This time, it's the Brunswick Blue Devils. The big tight end running free.
Look at him go.
Dominic Terensky. Just short of the touchdown, but they did punch it in later. And right here, play 8. And here's how they get into the end zone, keeping it and getting in. It's Joshua Schenko for the touchdown. Play number 7. Solon taking on Twinsburg. JT Caver.
Here was the play.
Oh, intercepts it.
And there it is.
The pick for JT Caver.
Tapped his teammate on the way out. Remember that.
He got out of bounds. Did not get in, so it's not a touchdown. Menor and Ignatius. Tadas Tatarunas. Oh, look at that. Buy some time. And then he finds Baird. And Baird, he just scores touchdowns.
Yeah, good mobility by Tatarunas. Great job in space by Baird.
48 yards. Avon and Olmsted Falls.
Lost him here.
Malloy. Oh, look at that. Right on the money and into the end zone. And no, he's not going to go on there. But close.
Fooled there.
Chris Mullins with the reception. Here's play number 4 again. Michael Howard. Look at the kick return. We saw this earlier.
This play.
Nice tackle by the kicker. Although he kind of got out of the way and just did the arm tackle, but still.
Do what you got to do.
Credit where credit is due. Here we go. The freshman, play number 3, Hoban, taking on Cardinal Mooney. Shane Ham.
Lifting it in there. There you go.
Up top, Garrett Hauser. That's a pretty good throw.
Yeah.
The 9th grader with the touchdown to the Naval recruit. Here we go. Play number 2, back to Avon. Avon all over this.
Notice how he's not touched in any of these?
This one's the touchdown to Orlando. Good grab. Play number 2.
Early, he didn't need to jump for this. He had it.
But that's okay.
He had it, though.
He wanted to be on the top plays. Darby and Hilliard-Davidson, the Battle of Hilliard. This one in overtime. And here we go. Clint Barnett. Oh, look at the acceleration. That one wins it for Darby and takes home the top play. Now, Nate, tell folks what they can do. We're going to get these on cleveland.com. What can they do?
Well, you make sure that you tweet at us with FNH Top Plays. That's FNH Top Plays. And you can see it on the show each week. So make sure you tweet at us. And on Saturday mornings, we'll have the plays up, and you can start voting. So,
and then we'll come and tell you which the top play is based on viewer vote. Barberton, Zane Reese.
The winner for last week. You know, I don't know if he was talking to his high school teammates and fans and friends down there and people at the grocery store, but they were voting. So,
are you accusing the good people of Barberton of ballot stuffing?
No,
don't do that to the quarterback who knows my voice now. Come on.
But it was a great play. It was
Yeah.
a great play after all. So
Reese to Parker with the touchdown. So a nice job by the Barberton Magic. We're going to step aside and take one more time out here on week 2 of Friday Night Huddle. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Spectrum Sports and cleveland.com. Stay with us.
Every week, from the locker room to the pitch and everywhere in between, Access Crew SC is your ultimate inside look at the black and gold. Join Marissa Contepelli, Dwight Burgess, and Neil Sika for unmatched coverage, in-depth analysis, and exclusive talks with the players and coaches. This is your club. This is your Access. Access Crew SC, Wednesdays on Spectrum Sports.
This is it. Your big break. Your one shot. Your only chance. There are 2 outcomes. Make history or be history.
The home of high school sports. Spectrum Sports. Exclusively on Spectrum. Your team, your school. Spectrum Sports is your home for Flyers athletics. What you live for lives here. The television home of the Dayton Flyers. Spectrum Sports. Flyers volleyball, Sunday at 1 on Spectrum Sports. exclusively on Spectrum. Crew SC Match Day. Every match, 30 minutes before the kick. Delivering everything fans need to know. With live reports, unmatched analysis, club news, and more. After the game, stay here for Crew SC Post-Match. From the biggest moments to the road ahead, Crew SC Match Day and Crew SC Post-Match. Only on Spectrum Sports.
The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education program has been recognizing students and teachers who shine both in and out of the classroom since 2007. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com and click on Supporting Education. Students in kindergarten through 12th grade are eligible to be academic all-stars. K through 12 teachers can be honored as the Teacher of the Month. Every school that participates is eligible to be honored as the School of the Year. The Ohio Lottery's Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Now he shoots it! What you live for lives here. We are Spectrum Sports, exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Friday Night Huddle here on Spectrum Sports and cleveland.com. We are about set to wrap up Week 2, and we're going to take a look ahead to Week 3. But before we do that, just a big thought from the week. We always do this. What stands out about Week 2?
Oh, boy. I'm probably going to go with this Region 1 race. Let's start with that first. I think with the whole Menor and St. Ignatius game, St. Ignatius pulling off the win there, I think it's probably going to help them, obviously, ahead there as St. Ignatius goes into a very competitive and ambitious schedule ahead. But I think just the win there and helping them in the playoff race here, even though it's only Week 2, I think it was a big test for them. So,
Hoban's got to be feeling good. Big win for them. Good game out of their young quarterback, Shane Ham. Getting back to what Hoban does. So they've got to be feeling good after that loss to St. Ignatius.
I've kind of got two. I've got Euclid, 2-0 against two pretty good teams with St. Ignatius looming. And then Aurora, two tough losses, close games, and now they're trying to keep that streak going, and they've got a pretty tough game against a young, improving Twinsburg team. So that's kind of interesting. Let's take a look and preview what's coming up in Week 3 as we look ahead to some of the games that kind of jump out. Elyria and Lorraine Thursday night, and that game will be live on Spectrum Sports if you want to catch it. Lorraine, a team that a lot of the coaches in the area feel pretty good about. We've alluded to this one, a real test for the Hudson Explorers. They got to go down to Tom Benson Stadium, where they hope to be, because that's where the state championships are going to be held this year. But Canton McKinley, very good team. Dan Reardon has that program on the rise. You know, Glenville, we've talked about everybody's start. Glenville, they've got St. Ed's, they've got Menor. They started out against Euclid. That's a tough way to go in Division III. If they win out in the Senate, they're going to be in the mix in Division III, but that's a tough way.
You'd hate to go into that game next week 0-2.
Yeah, you got St. Ed, so
it's entirely possible. I mean, there's a lot of pressure in that game.
And we've alluded to the Solon and Stowe game as well. That'll be a very big game for both of those teams. As both teams have looked pretty good in the early going as well. And then Akron East, tough loss a week ago, rebounded with a big win, and they get a Hoover team from the Federal League that's a very good team as well. Akron East, an Akron City school that made it to the playoffs for the first time in school history a year ago. They also won the city championship for the first time in over 40 years. Marcus Hayes, the head coach there, has this program going in the right direction after a very tough start to his tenure as head coach for Akron East.
They say, man, that video been going viral of us out there, man. They say, man, them boys look hungry. And that's exactly what I need them to know. When I first took over the program, me and my staff, we had 28 people on the team. Out of those 28 people, you had 16 guys who were freshmen. Half of them didn't play football before, so we took our lumps that first year. We didn't win a single game. Hit! All right, fall out, fall out, fall out, fall out. Next up, next up. So to go from not winning a single game the first year to 4 years later, you're in the playoffs. You're facing off with the #1 team in the region, an undefeated 10-0 team, and you're able to go down there and have the confidence and the wherewithal to beat that team. I think it speaks volumes for the young men that we have in our program. Not dominoes. I want it in sequence, all at one time. Hit! It was monumental for the school, for one, because a lot of things that happened last year was the first time that it's ever happened before. So it was the first time that East High School has ever made the playoffs. It was the first time in 41 years that we've won a city championship, so it was electric in the school. I saw teachers high-fiving each other. Our players was at an all-time high because they know when they walk through our locker room, we have a sign on top of the door that said, "Those who stay will be champions." It's full go today. But we're not hitting, we're not down on nobody's knees at all, okay? That's our foundation. We call those guys our foundational bricks right there. We've been building this wall, and it started with that team. And everything that comes after that is we're putting another layer on that wall. But we'll never forget that foundation that was built off of that 0-10 season. They want to point the target at us. Man, we're not going to be anybody's sitting target, am I right? It's probably hard to believe, but after we went 0-10 and had 28 guys on the team, we added 25 guys to the team the next year and ended up having 53 guys on the team, I want to say. And people were like, well, how did you guys add 25 guys to a team that didn't win a game? Well, I think they started believing into the vision. Never give up attitude. Never give up attitude. So we're going to get after it today, man. Then I got a challenge for y'all, too. The inner city football is the only thing I've known all my life. I played inner city football myself, so while I'm here, it's like I'm home. And I see these kids, and I see some of the struggles that some of them might have, some of the same struggles that I had, and I'm trying to let them know that, hey, Coach made it out, just like a lot of the coaches on my staff did it, and we're going to have a great time doing it. And they believe that. And over the years since I've been here, they've seen some of their teammates and peers make it. So what we'll do, we're going to flip the script on you. We're going to point the target back at you, and we're going to let you know that, hey, East Dragons is coming for you. Sure. Period. That's it. And, hey, this never give up attitude.
And the East Dragons now 1-1, lost a tough game, played very well against Massillon Jackson in Week 1, a Federal League team. Big win over Springfield. Big win, easily. And now they play another Federal League team in North Canton Hoover in Week 3. So it'll be interesting to see. A very good team. They've got several guys that are Division I recruits, so that's a good football team.
And, you know, you got to love stories like that. You know, school kind of low numbers, not winning a lot. Coach comes in and starts building that program up the right way, especially in a location like that. I mean, it's just a great story to follow.
And the coach, I mean, I was feeling his intensity there. I mean, even when he was talking about having the target on your back, and then he like looked at one of his players like, "You feel me?" And he was like, you know, Coach, oh yeah. So, you know, obviously he wants to make sure that you're alert and you're keeping an eye on what's going on. That was just a pure example of that. But just, you know, Akron East has a tall challenge ahead of them. I mean, we're looking at that region. We were just looking at St. Vincent-St. Mary, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin. Yep. There's a lot of teams in that region that they've got to compete against. So, you know, kudos off to Akron East for their accolades last year and getting ready for this season. So,
and you know what? He specifically went out and scheduled hard at the beginning of the season. You know, he scheduled Massillon Jackson, a Division I playoff team from the Federal League in Week 1, and they were competitive. They ended up turning the ball over and losing late in that game. He scheduled North Canton Hoover, a Division I Federal League team, with the idea of being ready for the playoffs, and it worked last year. They won the first game and actually were really competitive in the playoff game they lost as well.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident that it's going to work. And if they can find themselves in the playoffs, they shouldn't. There's nothing going to be new to them when they enter the playoffs if they have this schedule. So we're going to see what Akron East does and what they have in store.
And you know, being at their practice, they believe they should be in the playoffs. They believe they are a program on the rise, which is great. As you look ahead, a final thought. So we've got about a minute and a half left in show. What do you think about going into week 3 and what kind of jumps out?
I am excited about that Solon Stowe game because I think we'll learn a lot about both of those teams in that game. We'll learn what both of those teams really are. And I think that's still a question for both of them. I think we know more about Solon probably, but I still think there's questions about both teams, and I want to see what that game kind of produces.
Now, Glenville still has to get through their game this weekend against St. Edward, but if that's the case, then you got to hope, you know, as Glenville, you have to say, look, hey, we're getting ready to go to Menor, and we need to make sure that we're ready for the Senate League, and we're ready for it, and potentially hopefully try to make the playoff run. But first, they got to get through week 2. We're going to see them on Saturday. But come week 3, the Cardinals are going to have a lot to throw on them on offense, and they've got to be able to respond as well.
And we mentioned they lost to Euclid in week 1, turned the ball over 5 times, had a number of penalties, so they need to clean that up. And again, you can see that Euclid game against St. Ed's live at 7 o'clock on Spectrum Sports. For Nate Cline and Dan Labbe from cleveland.com, I'm Dave Bacon. We'll see you again next Friday night and each and every Friday night during high school football right here at 7 o'clock, 7 to 11. And remember, FNH Top Plays, hashtag FNH Top Plays. Send them to us. We'll see you again next Friday night. Have a great week, everyone.